In a grand hall, Margrave Edward stands over his kneeling son, Rondo. With a slow clap, he congratulates the boy on reaching his 15th birthday and thus adulthood. Rondo looks up, a hopeful smile on his face, and offers his thanks, beginning to ask what this means for his future. Nearby, a guard wonders aloud what the Margrave is implying. The Margrave's expression twists into a cruel sneer as he presents a flask of dark liquid. He declares that today is the day Rondo will die, commanding him to drink the poison. The boy's hopeful expression shatters, replaced by wide-eyed shock and disbelief. Having delivered his verdict, the nobleman turns and walks away down a stone corridor. The heavy, barred door of a cell clangs shut behind him, sealing Rondo inside. Outside the cell, the Margrave addresses two armored guards, asking about the prisoner's condition. Standing nearby is a cloaked figure, whom the guards respectfully identify as Felix. One of the guards turns to Felix and reports that everything is proceeding according to Lord Lear's command. On the stone floor, a goblet lies overturned, its dark contents spilled. From a high vantage point looking down into a circular pit, Rondo is seen lying motionless on the floor. The guard announces that Lord Rondo von Edward has committed suicide by poison. In response, Felix steps forward and contemptuously grinds her boot into the side of Rondo's head. She coldly rebukes the guard, ordering him never to use honorifics for the boy again. Her voice drips with disdain as she looks down at his still form, declaring that scum like him is not part of the Edward family. The events of 1 hour prior are recalled. In the city of Mariella, within the Learse region of the Yggdrasil kingdom, stands the Edward Margrave's estate. On a table sits the very bottle of poison and goblet that would be used to seal Rondo's fate. Returned to the present moment, Rondo sits alone in his dark cell, now wearing a simple hooded cloak. He stares at the poison set before him on a small table and resigns himself to his fate, believing his life is truly about to end. He cursed his fate, his mind reeling. He had only just turned 15 and had never even known a woman's company. From outside the cell, his sister Felix watched him, her face obscured by her hood. Into a simple wooden bowl, a dark liquid labeled poison was poured, followed by wine, the two substances mixing into a single, deadly draught. He took the bowl, his sister's voice echoing in his mind, confirming his purpose, to drink it and die. His gaze fell as a bitter realization settled over him. He wondered how it had come to this, but he already knew the answer. His fate had been sealed long before he was ever born. His destiny was tied to the unyielding laws of his homeland. In the Yggdrasil kingdom, and specifically the Learse region governed from the capital of Mariella, there are two things required of all nobility: bloodline and magical talent. Rondo failed the first requirement from the very beginning. His mother was not a noblewoman, but a maid in the service of his father, Margrave Edward. As the son of a concubine, he was born an illegitimate child, an unwanted existence from the moment of his birth. In stark contrast, his older brother and sister were the children of the Margrave's legitimate wife, possessing the proper bloodline. They were also blessed with magical talent. His sister, Felix, even manifested a crest of water magic, thus fulfilling both requirements for a noble. As for Rondo's own magical power, a test was conducted when he was a child. A magic attribute inspector was summoned to perform the attainment, a right to identify magical aptitude. The inspector looked down at the young boy and agreed to proceed with the evaluation. The inspector explained that there are two methods for identifying magical talent. The first is the manifestation of a magic crest, a divine oracle. These crests, representing the four elements of fire, wind, water, and earth, appear on the bodies of those with exceptionally high aptitude. However, the inspector continued, since magic crests are only granted to a select few, most are identified by the second method. But as he looked down on Rondo, he dismissed him entirely, declaring that in his case, even attempting the test would be a waste of time. The boy had no crest, and therefore, no value. He recalled the day of his magical aptitude test. The elderly inspector instructed him to first hold his hand over a candle flame. If he felt no heat, it would prove he had an affinity for fire magic. As he lowered his hand, he yelped and snatched it away, crying out from the heat. The inspector impassively noted his lack of fire affinity. The inspector explained that this was the attainment ritual, a process of checking one's affinity for the four elements. He declared they would move on and quickly finish the remaining 3 tests, while Rondo clutched his stinging, burnt hand. The result was a crushing blow. The official verdict was delivered. Rondo von Edward possessed no affinity for any of the 4 elements. The news was met with violence. His father, Margrave Edward, struck him down with a brutal backhand. Looming over the boy, his father spat that a magic-less creature like him could not be considered part of the Edward family. This rejection became his daily reality. He was forbidden from sitting at the main dining table with his siblings, relegated to a small, separate setting as his sister coldly ordered him to stay away. His father regarded him with utter contempt, muttering that he was a disgrace to the family, the magic-less son of a prostitute. His sister added that sharing the same space for a meal made her feel ill. Rondo could only bow his head, accepting his fate. He was born unwanted, with no place to call his own, forbidden from leaving the estate, and his very existence kept a secret. He was, for all intents and purposes, a person who did not exist. He was a non-person, a ghost within the walls of his own home. He had once believed that the only reason he was kept alive, and not simply killed, was due to some lingering kindness from his father. This fragile hope, that as long as his father, the head of the house, showed him mercy, a day might come when he would be accepted as family, was all he had. For 15 years, he clung to it, enduring scorn, contempt, and hatred. The answer to his years of endurance was not acceptance. It was a bowl of poison. The sight of it sent a jolt of pure terror through him, his eyes wide with a horrifying realization. Kneeling in his cell, he finally understood. His father had never felt any mercy for him at all. The Margrave's true intentions were far more calculating. As a nobleman, he couldn't risk the scandal of killing his own son, even an illegitimate one. His plan was to wait until Rondo came of age, then create a situation where the boy would take his own life, a fact he could present to the world as a suicide born of free will. For that purpose alone, for the sake of the family's reputation and public appearance, he had been kept in the estate for 15 years. He was nothing more than livestock. Tears of despair streamed down his face as he clutched the wooden bowl, the crushing weight of his existence settling upon him. With a silent, furious curse, he drank the dark liquid down to the last drop, his body slumping to the stone floor. A searing agony shot through his head. He cried out, clutching his skull, but then it stopped. He looked at his hands, bewildered. He was fine. A slow, disbelieving laugh began to bubble up as he realized the truth. It hadn't been poison at all. His manic laughter dies in his throat as a new, unexpected sensation courses through him. His eyes widen in disbelief, the world seeming to fracture around him. The metal cup, now empty, clatters to the stone floor, the sound echoing in the silent cell. He collapses, his body suddenly racked by an intense, burning heat that seems to radiate from within. He clenches his fist against the floor, panting as the strange agony begins. The heat concentrates on his back, morphing into an unbearable, searing itch. He cries out, twisting on the floor, wondering what is happening to him as the sensation feels like his back is on fire. As suddenly as it began, the torment subsides. He looks up from the floor, a bead of sweat on his temple, his mind racing to comprehend the ordeal. He remains kneeling, the strange silence in his cell now more unnerving than the pain. His gaze drifts, trying to look over his shoulder at the source of the burning. A profound understanding floods his mind, not in words, but as pure information. He has acquired poison magic, and it is currently neutralizing the toxin within his body. The process concludes. A new power is now his to command, a debilitating poison, known as the poison. He murmurs the words aloud. Poison. Magic. The concept of a magic crest appearing triggers a memory from his childhood. He recalls the day his sister, Phylix, manifested her own crest for water magic, an event celebrated by all. The memory sparks a sudden, startling thought. Back in his cell, he quickly pulls the cloak from his shoulders, a look of dawning comprehension on his face. Could it be that he too now bears a crest? He stands before a reflective surface, his cloak slipping from his shoulders to reveal a large, glowing pattern emblazoned across his back. His eyes widen in disbelief as he stares at the impossible sight, barely managing to stammer. It is a magic crest, a swirling, serpentine design glowing with an undeniable power upon his own skin. He questions how this could possibly be on his body, the answer dawning on him in a single, stunning realization. Poison magic. He recalls the words of the magic inspector during his appraisal. The first step to using magic is to come into contact with one's affinity. However, the standard attainment test can only recognize the 4 primary attributes of fire, wind, water, and earth. It is incapable of identifying aptitudes for any magic outside that system. The truth settles in. His is an out-of-system magic. That's why he never knew about his own power. His affinity was for poison, a fact he could only discover by consuming it. His gaze falls to the overturned goblet. A dark chuckle escapes him as he realizes he should be grateful to his father for choosing poison over being burned at the stake or shot. A manic, triumphant grin spreads across his face. His eyes burn with a newfound fire as he declares to the empty room, "My life isn't over yet." Standing at the top of a stone passage, Rondo considers his options. He knows he has little time. The guards could come and check on his supposed corpse at any moment, and he still has no clear idea how to escape. Even if he could somehow deal with the first guards to arrive, he knows there are many more patrolling the vast estate. Beyond the guards, there was his family. The Edward clan is filled with magical geniuses. If they found him alive, they would all descend upon him to finish the job. He realized with a cold sweat that if it came to a fight, he would be killed in an instant. His gaze fell as he considered his own abilities. Even with his poison magic, the only thing he could use was a slow-acting, weakening poison. Against his family, it was useless for a direct confrontation. He continued down the winding staircase, a sense of hopelessness washing over him. It felt useless. There was simply no way to escape. But then a thought sparked in his mind. His eyes shot open as a new possibility emerged. Weakening poison. Of course, that was it. He reevaluated his situation. If he couldn't escape by stealth, then he would simply walk out of the mansion openly. He wasn't sure if it would work, but it was a chance. He looked down at his hand, his expression hardening with resolve. He would have to bet everything on this one desperate plan. In the present, outside the Edward family estate, a section of a brick wall lies in ruins. He lay still on the cold stone floor, his face bruised and his eyes shut, appearing for all the world to be dead. A moment later, a foot pressed down hard on his head. A voice mused that they had suspected he might feign drinking the poison to escape, but it seemed their worries were for naught. This was for the best. The foot belonged to Felix von Edward, Rondo's older brother and the family's eldest son. He loomed over the body with a contemptuous sneer, declaring that the tainted blood which had polluted the Edward house was finally gone. The scene captured the finality of the moment. Rondo's still form, Felix's cold and victorious gaze, and the stark image of the victor standing over the vanquished. Felix clicked his tongue, annoyed. He noted that for someone who supposedly died in agony, Rondo's face was unervingly peaceful. Suspicion flared. He wondered if this could be a trick. Unwilling to take the chance, a magical sigil for water magic ignited in the palm of his hand. He unleashed the spell without hesitation. A water jet cutter that sent razor-sharp blades of water shredding across Rondo's prone body. The attack left Rondo's clothes soaked and his skin laced with fresh cuts. As the water settled, his fingers twitched almost imperceptibly. Blood now streamed from the new wounds on his face, yet his body remained otherwise unresponsive. Felix watched intently, his sharp eyes searching for any definitive sign of life. Seeing no further reaction, Felix finally seemed satisfied. He observed that there was no change, concluding that Rondo must truly be dead after all. From a high balcony, he issued a final, callous order: take the corpse to the common grave. As an afterthought, he added that they should also throw out the bones of Rondo's mother, the whore, along with him. His hand dripped blood onto the ornate floor as he watched the two armored guards carry his brother's limp form away. The blood pooled on the floor, a dark stain on the mansion's elegance. He realized it would be unseemly to have a bloody corpse soiling the estate and called out for them to wait. He clicked his tongue in annoyance, looking at the burn on his own hand. It was vexing, but he supposed he had no choice but to heal it. A soft glow enveloped his hand, the flesh knitting itself back together until it was pristine once more. With a minor inconvenience dealt with, he barked at the guards to finally carry the body away, and they quickly complied. As he walked away down a stone corridor, he mused to himself that being the next head of the family was not an easy role. With the unpleasantness concluded, he decided it was time to return to his duties. Meanwhile, the two men carried their burden into a bleak common graveyard. They found a suitable spot among the countless simple graves, and one suggested that this place would do. His companion agreed, stating they would just leave the body there for the time being. The other guard, a dark-skinned man, slapped his partner on the back of the head, complaining about the ridiculously long walk from the carriage park to the cemetery. The body, now unceremoniously bundled in a large sack, was dropped onto the grass next to a small, lidded urn. The first guard commented that while he doubted anyone would come to pay respects, placing the urn with the body was simply procedure. As night began to fall, one guard suggested they could simply return in 3 or 4 days to perform the burial. The other readily agreed, noting that it was getting dark and creepy, and urged they head back immediately. With that, they turned their backs on the abandoned sack. One guard mentioned that since they received a reward from Lord Felix, they should go for a drink. His partner thought that was an excellent idea, and the two departed, leaving the body alone in the darkness. He lay still within the coarse sack, abandoned amidst the tombstones of the common graveyard under a starry night sky. But inside the darkness, his eyes snapped open, wide and alert. A rustling sound broke the graveyard silence as he began to stir, tearing a hole through the fabric of the sack. He pushed himself out from the makeshift shroud, sitting up under the brilliant light of the full moon. He was alive. He had been saved. He looked down at his hands, then stood alone amongst the graves, having successfully escaped his prison. He recalled his desperate thought from before. If he couldn't run away, then he would have to walk out of the mansion openly. To achieve this, he had activated a skill, weakening poison. He had willed his own body to succumb, begging it to hold on just long enough. He hadn't been sure how well the plan would work, but he reflected that he had somehow managed to put himself into a state of suspended animation. His gaze fell upon the urn containing his mother's ashes. He had achieved his goal of getting outside the mansion's walls, just as he'd planned. He looked up at the starry sky, a small smile touching his lips. He realized that being able to leave with his mother was a happy, unforeseen bonus. He stood before the simple wooden cross, clutching his mother's ashes, a profound question echoing in his mind. Having escaped the mansion alive, what was he to do now? The uncertainty hardened into resolve. He realized that in order to survive from this point forward, he would have to fully understand the poison magic that was now a part of him. To do that, he couldn't stay in the area. If his survival were discovered, he would surely be killed. He first needed to leave the Lear's territory, ruled by the Margrave. He considered that if he could reach the coastal Anastasia territory, he might be able to take a ship and travel even farther away. With his plan formed, he knelt one last time. "I'm going now, mother," he whispered, his face a mask of grim determination. He would see this through. He would live. He turned and walked away from the grave, his path now clear. He would master poison magic without being found by the Margrave's family. His destination was set, the territory of Anastasia, a distant city glowing under the night sky. Meanwhile, in a lavishly decorated room, a hand drew a wicked, curved blade, its edge gleaming with deadly intent. The blade was held before a terrified young woman, Marie von Anastasia. The assassin declared that she would die here. Stunned, she asked who the attacker was and why they were doing this, her voice trembling as she cried out for them to stop. In the dense forest, Rondo identifies a particular fungus, a numbing mushroom. He reasons that, in the worst-case scenario, eating it shouldn't be fatal. With a grimace of disgust, he takes a large, decisive bite, forcing the raw mushroom down. The effect is swift. A heavy thud echoes through the clearing as his body gives out. He lies sprawled on the forest floor, groaning softly as the paralysis takes hold, surrounded by more of the very mushrooms he just consumed. As he lies helpless, his thoughts clarify the situation. Just as he'd hoped, the voice from the heavens announced the poison entering his system. He understands that his body will now neutralize and analyze the toxin, which will then become usable as poison magic. All he needs to do is wait for the neutralization to complete. His wait, however, is cut short. His eyes widen in sheer terror as a massive, horned wolf-like beast emerges from the undergrowth, its predatory gaze fixed upon him. Another follows close behind. The creature looms over his paralyzed form, its cavernous maw opening wide. Rondo realizes his grave mistake. He was careless and should have secured a safer location. With his body still unresponsive, he desperately pleads for the neutralization to finish, knowing with sickening certainty that it won't be in time. Its dripping fangs descend, stopping just inches from his head. Then, with a heavy thud that shakes the ground, the massive beast collapses beside him. Rondo can only stare, his mind reeling in confusion. His terrified gaze shifts to the creature's now limp form. A sudden realization strikes him as he spots a half-eaten, numbing mushroom inside its open mouth. He lay paralyzed as the process of neutralizing the poison continued within him. As if drawn by the scent of death, a new predator arrived, a massive, two-headed blood snake. It ignored the helpless boy, its attention fixed on the corpse of the horned wolf. One of its heads sank its fangs into the beast, preparing to inject venom, while the other readied itself to drain the creature's blood. As the monstrous snake began to feed, the commotion attracted yet another scavenger, a grotesque, bird-like creature with multiple eyes, which landed nearby. Rondo remained motionless on the rocky ground, a spectator to the grim feast. He watched the creatures, his mind racing. He knew he had to obtain the potent poison that had felled the Vanded wolf. A lethal toxin would be necessary for his survival. But he couldn't risk being bitten, realizing that if he were, the scavengers would drain his blood while he was still paralyzed. With no other choice, he resolved to act. He had to use the paralysis poison he had just acquired to stop them. Before the creatures could turn on him, he focused his will, and a dark orb of energy materialized in his hand. He unleashed his new paralysis poison magic. Time passed, allowing the fruits of his desperate gamble to ripen. The scene shifts to a bustling town. Inside what appears to be a guild hall, a cheerful receptionist addresses a new arrival. She confirms that he is there for adventure registration and asks for the fee of 1 silver coin, also requesting to see his nameplate for verification. Rondo, now fully recovered and clad in practical traveler's gear, stands before the receptionist. He hands over the coin, confirming his identity. He had considered using a false name to hide from his past, but knew it was futile. His name was bound to a soul plate by the temple, making aliases impossible for official records. He glances at the small chain in his gloved hand. He reasons that since only his first name, Rondo, will be recorded, it should be safe. The name is common enough that it shouldn't be sufficient to connect him to the disgraced Edouard family. After returning his verified plate, the receptionist smiles. Rondo, she begins, what will your registered job be? Rondo is momentarily taken aback by the question. He internally dismisses registering as a poison magic user, knowing it would be far too conspicuous. Instead, he declares his job as Ranger, noting its association with poison-related skills. The receptionist reacts with surprise, remarking on how rare a choice that is. He listens as the guild receptionist, Philia, suggests that now might be a good time for him to earn some money. Surprised, he asks if that is truly the case. She confirms, explaining that the buyback prices for various poison grasses and antidotes have risen across the board. An antidote not currently circulating within the duchy, she adds, would fetch a very high price. His interest piqued, he asks why she cannot tell him the reason for this sudden demand. Philia simply offers a nervous laugh in response, avoiding the question. She cheerfully changes the subject, wishing Rondo the best of luck in his future endeavors as an adventurer. He, however, remains focused on the strange situation, wondering why prices would suddenly spike. As she gives a polite bow, he internally reflects on his predicament. Becoming too famous through his activities would only cause problems for him. He turns from the counter, resolving to collect poisons discreetly for the time being. He also decides he must obtain a powerful poison to use as a countermeasure, should he ever be discovered by members of the Edouard family. As he moves through the guild hall, a large hand claps down on his shoulder. The guild master, Gildas, remarks loudly that thanks to the Duke, any poison brought in will turn into easy money. The guild master's words connect the dots. He glances back towards the reception desk, realizing Philia had been hesitant to speak because the matter was related to the Duke. Gildas, noticing Rondo's reaction, offers a gruff apology. Seizing the opportunity, he turns to face the guild master, holding up his registration plate. He asks if Gildas can tell him more about this business with the poisons. The large man looks down, annoyed, and asks what he wants. The perspective pulls back to an overhead view of the guild's courtyard as the guild master's voice booms out, shouting for the next person in line. At the guild, a heated argument is underway. A woman named Full, apprentice to the Duke's personal physician, angrily presents a vial, declaring it a mere sleeping potion and questioning if such a childish trick is expected to work. Across from her, Rand, a soldier of the Anastasia ducal house, shouts back that he has already purchased it and tells her to leave. He turns away in frustration, hands on his hips, muttering about the endless stream of swindlers. A nearby guard informs Rand that the next person to be seen is the last one. His exhaustion is palpable as he lets out a great yawn, complaining that after interviewing over 100 people, not a single one has been competent. Full retorts from her desk that there are no healers within their territory capable of providing a cure, leaving them no choice but to rely on outsiders. He glances at a document, confirming that arrangements are being made, but grimly notes it will take at least a month for anyone to arrive from outside their lands. He voices the terrible uncertainty of whether the princess can hold on for that long, a reality that brings a tear to Full's eye. As they despair, a new figure approaches the desk. He introduces himself as Rondo. Full eyes him skeptically, wondering what simple concoction he might have brought. Rand, however, recognizes the name, noting that this last applicant is a poison user said to be deeply knowledgeable on the subject. The young man's mind races. He understands this is a critical opportunity. Rand, however, looks down on him with disdain, cutting him off. He demands that Rondo skip the formalities and state what he can do. This tense exchange is the result of the information Rondo had just received. The guild master, Gildas, had explained the situation with a cunning smile, revealing that the Duke's daughter has been poisoned and is not expected to live much longer. The Duke, he'd said, is frantically searching for any medicine or item that could save her. The weight of Gildas's words settles upon him. He realizes that to effectively hide from the Edward family, he needs the protection of someone with significant power. A plan forms. If he can cure the Duke's daughter, he might secure the aid of the Anastasia ducal house. With this goal in mind, he addresses the soldier, choosing his words with care. He explains that the information he possesses is a dangerous secret. He then makes his offer. In exchange for curing the Duke's daughter, he requests the official protection of the ducal house. His proposal hangs in the air. Rand looks down, internally dismissing Rondo as another swindler trying to raise his price. Yet, he also reflects that a parent's love for their child is a powerful, unchanging force. Out loud, he states that he can't give a definitive answer, but then poses a counter-question. Can Rondo provide the person who administered the poison? He asks if that'll suffice for now. As a demonstration for the skeptical soldier, a bound man writhes on the floor, groaning in agony after a brief touch from Rondo. The woman with glasses Full is bewildered, recalling she only saw a momentary touch. The soldier, Rand, demands to know what happened, exclaiming that the man had been perfectly fine just moments before. Rondo calmly addresses Rand, reiterating his initial offer. He will cure the Duke's daughter in exchange for his own safety. He then adds a wry proposition, suggesting that if they wish to purchase the poison he just used, he is willing to sell. Rand flatly refuses, stating he cannot allow someone who performs such suspicious tricks near the princess. Unfazed, Rondo counters that he will provide proof of his ability to cure her, but warns that once they witness it, they will become party to the situation. His eyes narrow with intense focus as he asks them directly, "Are they prepared?" After a tense moment, Rand concedes. He agrees to the demonstration, telling Rondo to proceed and instructing Full to watch closely. As Rondo turns, both Rand and Full are stunned by the sight on his back. Full cries out, identifying it as a magic crest, and exclaims that she has never even heard of a dragon-type crest before. Now shirtless, Rondo kneels beside the poisoned man, the serpentine dragon crest on his back fully visible. He places a hand on the man's chest and invokes his power, neutralize poison. The crest glows as the cure takes effect. The test subject sits up, immensely relieved. Rand stares in disbelief, noting that the dragon's face on the crest seemed to move. Rondo explains that as a user of a unique magic lineage, he can now handle any poison he has experienced. His demonstration earns him an audience with Duke Taddan von Anastasia. The Duke confirms he has heard reports of Rondo's poison magic and asks for details. Rondo explains that after experiencing a poison, he gains the ability to handle it and create its antidote, stating this is why he sought a meeting. He considers Rondo's words. The poison from the assassin's knife is still preserved, he notes. He asks directly if Rondo can cure his daughter, Marie, by consuming it. Rondo confirms it is likely possible, but cautiously adds that he has only just awakened this power and is not yet aware of its full limitations. He then states his purpose for being there. He seeks the protection of the Duke's house. The Duke acknowledges the request, weighing the uncertainty of Rondo's unproven power against the fact that no other healing mages have been effective. As the Duke mulls over the proposition, Rondo prepares to reveal his full story. He declares that, though it may be presumptuous, he will explain everything about who he is without hiding any details. He reveals his identity, stating that he is not merely a user of non-systemic magic, but also a son of the Edward household, the Margrave's family. The Duke's gaze sharpens at the name. He understands the true weight of the request. Rondo is asking him to accept the risk of antagonizing the Edward family. Rondo quickly clarifies his intentions. He explains that he only needs sanctuary for a limited time. He promises that once he is capable, he will leave the country to avoid bringing any further trouble to the Duke's house. A bead of sweat traces a path down his temple. He understands the gravity of the moment. If the Duke refuses him now, his options are exhausted. The Duke remains silent, his expression unreadable as he weighs the boy's plea. He sits in tense silence, questioning if his answers were correct. He realizes with chilling clarity that a single misstep could result in him being handed over directly to the Edward family. The alternative, he realizes, is just as grim: execution as a dangerous wielder of poison magic. The Duke's intense gaze seems to bore into him, scrutinizing his every thought. After a long, tense silence, the Duke finally speaks. "Very well," he declares, "I will look after you." He looks at Rondo with desperate intensity, pleading with him to cure his daughter, Marie. The Duke states his belief that Rondo is the only one capable of such a feat. In response, Rondo meets the Duke's gaze with quiet determination. He acknowledges that his power is limited but promises to do everything he can. He is then presented with the weapon used in the assault, a wicked-looking knife with a unique, curved blade. This is the very instrument that delivered the poison to Lady Marie. Later, in a storeroom, Rondo explains his plan to the guildmaster, Gildas. He notes that the poison, though dry, remains on the blade. He instructs Gildas that he will first ingest the poison directly and will subsequently collapse, asking only to be placed in a bed to recover. Gildas simply acknowledges the plan. The guildmaster assures him it will be done, confirming that a guest room has been prepared for him to rest in. As the moment approaches, a bead of sweat forms on Rondo's temple. He recalls the immense suffering he endured to gain his deadly poison ability from the bloodsnake's venom and questions the wisdom of willingly ingesting this new, unknown poison, one that has stumped all previous attempts at a cure. He visualizes the monstrous, two-headed bloodsnake, remembering the sheer power of its venom. He realizes it is a gamble. He has no way of knowing if his body can withstand a poison of this magnitude. Standing alone with a poison knife, he considers the worst-case scenario. If this venom is exponentially stronger than the one he has already mastered, his body's neutralization process might fail, leading to his death. Yet, he knows that running away now offers no hope for a better future. His resolve hardens as images of his tormentors flash through his mind. The smug face of his father, Margrave Edward, and the cruel sneer of his brother, Felix. He is doing this to escape them, to break free from the shadow of the Edward family. With his purpose clear, he brings the blade to his lips and licks the dried poison from the steel. He came this far, he reminds himself, all for the sake of his freedom. His reckless action drew a cry of disbelief from the guildmaster. "Rondo!" Gildas shouted, his one good eye wide with shock and alarm. Rondo's body is racked with agony. His eyes are wide with shock and pain as a silent scream escapes his lips, the potent poison coursing through him. He gasps for air, trying to convince himself he'll be all right, but his body betrays him. An internal process of neutralization begins, but the pain is overwhelming, and he can only manage a weak groan. The struggle proves too much, and he collapses forward. A guard, Rand, sees him fall and rushes over, shouting his name in alarm. Rondo lets out a final, guttural cry as he succumbs to the venom. From outside the cell, Rand peers through the bars with a look of grave concern, yelling for Rondo to hold on. Sometime later, Rondo awakens in a bed, his clothes having been changed. He stares at his hand, disoriented. A chronicle of his ordeal reveals the outcome. He has acquired poison-based attack and defense magic, along with various poison resistances. While he was unconscious, a microdose of poison was used as a recovery treatment, and he can now wield such doses himself. He realizes with a start just how vicious a poison was brought to assassinate the Duke's daughter. His thoughts drift to the source of this transformation, the dragon's poison. He recalls the venom on the blade, understanding now that it was from a species so rare it had only been sighted a few times in the country over several years. He survived. Again, a wave of relief washes over him as he considers the danger he faced. The dragon was an uncatalogued, special type of magical beast, and the potency of its poison was on another level entirely. He knows that a single misstep would have meant certain death. Pushing himself up, he feels his body sway unsteadily. He looks down, noticing his fresh clothes, and wonders just how long he was unconscious. Just then, the door creaks open. Rand stands in the doorway, his face filled with relief. "Rondo," he calls out, "you're awake." Rondo acknowledges the guard by name. His expression hardens with resolve. There is no time to waste. He must get to the young lady's side immediately. He awoke inside a well-appointed room, the architecture suggesting a noble's estate. A realization settled in. He had been asleep for a considerable amount of time. Facing Rand, he apologized, explaining that the poison had been far more potent than he anticipated. Rand's stern expression did not soften as he informed him that 3 days had passed. The guard then cut straight to the matter, asking if detoxification was even possible. Rondo met his gaze with unwavering confidence, assuring him that it could be done without any issue. Following this assurance, Rand led him down a lavishly decorated corridor. They were flanked by 2 soldiers in full plate armor, their silent procession moving toward a set of large double doors under a grand chandelier. Before they reached the doors, Rand stopped and turned, his expression grave. He declared that Rondo, as a poison specialist, was their last hope and urged him to do whatever was necessary. With a click of the door latch, Rondo's face hardened with resolve. He simply told Rand to wait and expect a positive outcome. They stepped into an opulent bedchamber. A massive, curtained canopy bed stood at its center, where the still form of the Duke's daughter lay. Beside the bed, Duke Anastasia clutched his daughter's hand, his face etched with anguish. He whispered her name, Marie, urging her to hold on just a little longer before turning to Rondo and pleadingly entrusting her to his care. As Rondo moved closer, Rand's voice came from behind, low and menacing. He warned that if Rondo showed even a hint of suspicious behavior, he would unleash magic on him without mercy. Rondo paused, acknowledging the threat with a simple confirmation. He assured Rand he would be careful, then excused himself and stepped fully toward the bed, his mission about to begin. He approached the grand bed where the Duke's daughter, Anastasia, lay unconscious. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow, her form still beneath the covers. Leaning closer, he looked down at her, his expression serious as he assessed her condition. As he focused, a strange ability allowed him to perceive her status. Her name was Marie, and she possessed a hot crest for wind magic. Her health was listed as poisoned, weakened, with her life force dwindling to a mere 5 out of 43 points. He understood instantly. Her entire body was enveloped in an orange light, a continuous healing spell barely keeping her alive. He realized this ability to see her status must be a dragon skill he gained from the poison. But he also knew that at this rate, she wouldn't last much longer. She would surely perish. A surge of determination coursed through him as he stood over her. He would not let that happen. He recalled the details of the assassination attempt. The knife had been coated with the venom of a purple dragon. Detoxification was said to be possible only by the dragon itself, and with no known subjugations, creating an antidote was considered theoretically impossible. But he knew, with his new powers, that he could succeed. He identified the specific substance in his mind, deleterio, the poison found within a purple dragon's breath. As a visible aura began to flow from him, Rand watched from the side, his expression hardening with suspicion. Rondo ignored him, focusing his intent to scan her body, visualizing the magic flowing through her like a river. He brought his hands together, channeling a vast amount of magic power. A complex, glowing magical circle materialized between his palms. With a final surge of energy, he thrust his hands forward, unleashing the spell. Detoxification magic, neutralized dragon poison. A brilliant column of light erupted from the magic circle, enveloping Anastasia's body in its purifying glow. He pours his magic into Anastasia, the energy swirling around her as dark tendrils of poison are drawn out. He is determined to save her, no matter the cost. He realizes that detoxification alone is consuming more than half of his magical power. To enhance the spell's effect, he would need to push even more magic into her, risking complete mana deficiency. Despite the danger, he knows failure is not an option. With renewed resolve, he unleashes the full extent of his power. The dark tendrils of poison writhe violently as they are extracted from Anastasia's body. Watching the volatile display, Rand cries out her name in alarm. A final, overwhelming surge of magic erupts from him, engulfing the room in a blinding flash as he commands all of his power into the spell. The force of the spell dissipates, leaving lingering traces of immense power that distort the very air in the ornate chamber. As the magical energy subsides, the room returns to stillness. Rondo lies collapsed on the floor beside the bed, utterly spent, while Anastasia rests peacefully. Rand rushes to the collapsed boy's side, grabbing him by the shoulder. He urgently asks about Anastasia's health status, his gaze shifting from the unconscious Rondo to the still form in the bed. His attention shifts entirely to Anastasia. As he takes her hand, he perceives her condition improving. A magical assessment confirms his hope. Her health status is now good, and her vitality is returning. Overwhelmed with relief, Rand clasps her hand, realizing the boy had successfully cured her. At that moment, Anastasia stirs with a soft murmur, her eyes fluttering open. From the floor, the exhausted Rondo looks on. Her eyes slowly focus, and she weakly calls out for her father. She awakens to the sight of her father, his face etched with profound relief. He cries out her name, Marie, overjoyed that she is truly safe. As she gazes up, her vision is filled with his relieved smile. The Duke clasps his daughter's hand tightly. Nearby, Rondo stands silently by the bedside as Anastasia's gaze shifts from her father to the young man who saved her. His attention then turns to the boy. The Duke, addressing him as Rondo, states that he wishes to formally thank him and declares that from this point forward, his position in the household will be that of a shikyaku, a guest of honor. Rondo expresses his gratitude. The Duke elaborates that a shikyaku is akin to a live-in sage or warrior, treated with the respect of a guest. He reasons that granting Rondo this clear, official status will make it more difficult for Margrave Edward to make any moves against him. He continues, assuring Rondo that he is fundamentally free to spend his time as he wishes. However, the Duke adds, there is one thing he would like him to do in exchange for this hospitality. Rondo, intrigued, asks what that might be. The Duke reveals his mission. He wants Rondo to find the person who orchestrated the assassination attempt on Marie. This, he explains, is Rondo's purpose as a shikyaku, a role that will grant him the freedom to go anywhere. Sometime later, Rondo stretches idly in a hallway, feeling drowsy. A maid scolds him for his laziness, while another remarks that it's the first time the Duke has ever taken on a shikyaku. Rondo simply retorts that he can't help being sleepy. His lazy moment is interrupted by a voice calling out, "Lady Marie." He looks up to see Anastasia moving along an upper-floor corridor in a wheelchair. He watches her pass, a thought crossing his mind. It's strange to see a wheelchair with handles, but no one pushing from behind. He feels a pang of guilt, internally apologizing for his earlier drowsiness. He is startled when Anastasia suddenly declares it's time for magic practice. She explains that since he healed her, she must now make up for the week she lost while incapacitated. From a balcony, her wheelchair creaking softly, she calls out to him with a cheerful heck. Looking down at him in the courtyard below, she suggests that he should also practice his magic more, questioning if he, like her, has a compelling reason to become stronger. He agrees, acknowledging that while that is true, he must currently continue his training subtly to avoid attracting unwanted attention. In response, Anastasia offers a solution. She proposes they go to the Anastasia family's villa, a place where they can practice magic together without fear of being observed. He is taken aback by the scale of her offer, remarking that a private villa is an incredibly grand location just for training. The reason for her caution becomes clear. Her father, Duke Anastasia, had explained that the person who attacked his daughter was her most trusted handmaiden. Because of this betrayal, Anastasia is now trapped in a state of extreme paranoia. This explains why Rondo uses wind magic to propel her wheelchair. She cannot bear to have anyone stand behind her. He understands that she has placed her trust in him, the one who saved her life, as she formally asks him to handle the arrangements for the villa. Looking at her with renewed determination, he accepts. He declares that he will become stronger and vows that he will protect the princess. Her eyes widen slightly, reflecting a flicker of emotion as she processes his heartfelt vow. Her silence breaks with a soft chuckle that drifts into the open sky. She tells Rondo that she is looking forward to it. Rondo looks up at a grand manor, remarking on the splendor of the Anastasia ducal family's villa. Beside him, Anastasia, seated in her wheelchair, smiles and announces that it is time for his special magic training. She suggests they go to a suitable place just behind the mansion, and he readily agrees. Following her lead, they arrive at a vast, secluded clearing surrounded by dense forest. Anastasia explains that in this spot, he can practice his magic with all his might, without worrying about anyone watching. With the training ground established, Anastasia turns to him and asks if she might see his magic. Rondo looks at her and agrees without hesitation. He steps forward, concentrating. Chanting words of power, he gathers a large amount of magical energy, forming it into a sphere. A swirling vortex of dark energy materializes at his feet. Rondo unleashes the spell, a poison ball, virulent toxin. The dark orb hurtles through the air and slams into a thick tree, causing birds to flee from the surrounding woods. The impact is explosive, shattering the massive trunk. Watching the raw display of force, Anastasia's eyes widen slightly. She quietly remarks on the incredible power he wields. They observe the aftermath. The tree is a smoldering, splintered wreck. Anastasia notes that it's a vicious spell, not only powerful as an attack, but also scattering poison on impact. She confirms that practicing this inside a building would have been out of the question. Rondo adds that the poison seems to have a dissolving effect, speculating that it would have eaten through the floor indoors. Deciding to demonstrate further, he says he will try changing the type of poison. A small creature on the ground nearby sizzles and dissolves into nothing. Seeing his control and potential, Anastasia offers an encouraging smile. She tells him to practice to his heart's content, and he agrees with a simple yes. With her blessing, Rondo prepares for his next spell. As Anastasia watches intently, he conjures a large, intricate magic circle in the air before him, gathering power for an even greater display of his abilities. He stands with a determined expression, his gaze fixed forward after unleashing another barrage of poison magic. As Anastasia watches him with a gentle, thoughtful expression, he turns to her and makes a solemn vow. He declares that he will become strong enough to protect her. His declaration seems to stir something within her, and she falls silent. Noticing her quiet, distant expression, Rondo asks what is wrong. She stammers, flustered, and dismisses his concern. Her attention is fixed on a more practical matter, the sheer number of spells he has cast. She asks in disbelief how he still has magical energy after firing more than 10 shots. Rondo calmly confirms that he can keep going. His casual confidence only deepens her astonishment. He explains that using his more potent poisons would indeed drain him, but clarifies that everything he has demonstrated so far has just been weak poison. Anastasia reacts with shock, questioning what he could possibly mean by that. A smile spreads across Rondo's face as a realization dawns on him. This must mean he possesses an unusually large amount of magic power. Anastasia confirms his theory, explaining that it's not normal to cast so many spells. Even 10 fireballs would typically cause mana deficiency in a mage. The mention of conventional magic sends his mind back to a painful memory. He recalls watching from a window as his older brother, Felix, practiced effortlessly conjuring a waterball spell. Rondo had watched, thinking only of his own vast, but seemingly useless, magical reserves. In the memory, his brother's spell strikes its target perfectly. His sister claps in admiration, praising Felix's excellent performance and eagerly asking for a turn next. Watching them, the younger Rondo had clenched his fist in frustration. If only I had a talent for magic, he had thought, lamenting the life he could have had. Pulled from his reverie, he finds Anastasia looking up at him with wide, curious eyes. She poses a new question, wondering aloud what would happen if he were to use his strongest poison. In response to her question, Rondo admits with a thoughtful expression that since he has never tried it, he doesn't know its effect. His gaze then shifts, a quiet confidence emerging as he asks if he might test it. He steps into a clearing, positioning himself before a large, gnarled tree stump. From a safe distance, Anastasia watches from her wheelchair as he raises his hand, preparing to cast the spell. He closes his eyes, concentrating his will. A complex magical sigil materializes in the air before his outstretched palm. A single thought crystallizes in his mind. He is different now from the person he was back then. His eyes snap open, filled with resolve. He understands that the man he is now, having obtained the strongest of poison magics, the dragon's poison, can accomplish this. From his hand erupts a torrent of dark, viscous energy, coalescing into a monstrous form. The spell is named Poison Magic Purple Dragon. The mass of poison takes the definitive shape of a ferocious dragon, roaring silently as it surges forward. Anastasia can only stare, her eyes wide with disbelief at the sheer scale of the attack. With a powerful shout, Rondo commands it onward. The poison dragon tears through the forest, carving a wide, black path of decay in its wake. Trees are obliterated instantly, reduced to nothing as the spell plows ahead. Its devastating advance continues unabated, leaving a long, smoldering scar across the landscape, a testament to the spell's overwhelming power. Witnessing the utter devastation, Anastasia covers her mouth, her expression a mixture of awe and terror. Even Rondo seems taken aback by the magnitude of his own power, a single bead of sweat on his temple. Surveying the blackened, smoldering ruin before them, Rondo's expression hardens. He declares that he will strive to become strong enough to never lose to anyone. Recovering from her shock, Anastasia manages a small laugh, remarking that with such incredible power, she doubts he has to worry about losing to anyone at all. Heeding his own resolve, he ventures alone into the dense forest, leaving the relative safety of the villa grounds behind. Just before his departure, Anastasia had expressed her concern, warning him that monsters were known to appear farther from the villa. She also noted the need to test his poison magic further to understand its capabilities. Rondo simply acknowledged her words, stating he would be gone for a little while. As he walked, his thoughts turned to the practicalities of his power. He mused that the purple dragon poison would likely carry an astronomical price, limiting its acquisition to only a select few in the upper echelons of society. He clenched his fist, realizing that while Anastasia was confident in her strength, the world was not so simple. He reasoned that if someone could afford such a thing, they could easily hire an assassin to target her. Any such opponent would be a formidable one. This line of thought inevitably led him to his own family. Should he ever find himself in a direct confrontation with his siblings from the Edouard household, he knew they would never give him the time or space to unleash a grand technique like the purple dragon. To be prepared for such a battle, he understood he needed to master the specific properties of his magic and learn to wield it with precision. To do that, he needed practical experience. As if summoned by his thoughts, a small group of goblins emerged from the trees, brandishing crude clubs. He immediately cast a spell, Poison Magic Sphere, Weakening Poison. A small orb of dark energy flew from his hand and struck the lead goblin. The effect was not explosive but insidious. The goblins staggered as the poison took hold, their health rapidly draining away. Within moments, the creatures collapsed, their life force extinguished. Rondo calmly analyzed the result, noting that the poison seemed to reduce their health by about 1 point per second. A slow but effective method of elimination. He unleashes another spell, Poison Magic Sphere, Weakening Poison. The orb of sickly energy hurtles through the air. The projectile strikes a goblin, which bursts apart from the physical impact. Rondo observes that this time, the target's health simply depleted without inflicting a poison status. He realizes that the poison effect itself must be a random, secondary bonus to the initial damage. Having confirmed this, he decides to switch tactics and test a different type of poison. He casts Poison Magic Sphere Paralysis Poison at another goblin. The creature is struck and immediately becomes paralyzed, unable to move. He surmises this effect is also likely random. With the creature immobilized, he approaches and applies a deadly poison directly. The goblin's health, already low, begins to plummet as the potent toxin takes hold. The goblin collapses to the forest floor, its life extinguished. Watching it fall, he solidifies his understanding. There are two methods to inflict poison: a ranged attack that deals physical damage but applies poison randomly, and a direct contact method that, while risky, guarantees the poison's application. His strategic analysis is cut short by a desperate shout piercing the air. Marie-sama. Rondo's head snaps around, his expression instantly shifting to one of shock and alarm. The sharp clang of steel on steel rings out from the direction of the cry. The source of the cry is a chaotic melee. In a clearing, Anastasia sits helplessly in a simple wooden chair, a look of terror on her face, as armored guards battle shadowy figures clad in black all around her. One of the dark-clad assailants, moving with blinding speed, brutally cuts down an armored guard, their blades slicing through the soldier's defenses with ease. The lead assassin and his cohort descend upon their target, blades raised for the kill. Below, seated in her wheelchair, Anastasia's eyes widen in pure terror at the sudden, lethal attack. As the attacker closes in, he declares that the Duchess, Marie von Anastasia, will die here. Her shock turns to disbelief as she recognizes the assailant, questioning why this specific person would be the one to attack her. Her question hangs unanswered in the air as the immediate danger prompts a raw scream of terror to escape her lips. But before the fatal blow can land, a new power erupts from the nearby woods. From Rondo, a torrent of dark energy coalesces, forming a massive, multi-headed poison dragon, the Shiryu. With a guttural roar, the colossal magical beast lunges forward, a blur of shadowy tendrils and raw power. It crashes into the assassin's path, its dark form intercepting them mid-air and violently flinging them aside. From her wheelchair, Anastasia winces, turning away from the violent spectacle as her maid watches on, murmuring her lady's name in concern. As the magical dragon holds the attackers at bay, Rondo stands firm, his magic circle glowing intensely. He roars a promise that he will protect Anastasia, who can only stare in stunned silence as her would-be killers are helplessly tossed about. His declaration culminates in a decisive strike as the dragon's powerful tendrils slam down upon the assassins, crushing them against the forest floor. Rondo stands over the shattered earth, the bodies of three assassins, Dan, Suru, and Tensuru, lying motionless around him. Their life signs are gone. He catches his breath, the immediate danger having passed. Watching from nearby, Anastasia's eyes are wide with terror. The brutal, swift violence has left her pale and visibly shaken. Her shock manifests physically as her hands, resting on her wheelchair, begin to shake uncontrollably. Noticing her fear, Rondo immediately kneels before her. He looks up, his voice steady as he reassures her that it's okay and that he will protect Lady Marie. Her gaze softens as she looks down at the young man who just saved her life. She whispers his name, Rondo. He looks back at her, his expression firm with resolve. He reflects internally that she has saved him once again, creating a debt he feels he can never truly repay. Their hands meet, and she thanks him. He, in turn, feels a sense of reassurance, thinking that with her, everything will be all right. Sometime later, as they approach a large estate, Anastasia's thoughts return to the men who attacked them. Dan, Sue, Tensuru. Inside the mansion, Duke Anastasia strokes his chin in contemplation. He surmises that the attackers were likely the Connie three brothers. He is in a meeting with Margrave Edward and asks if this group is well known in their particular world. The Margrave confirms that they are, especially within the circles of assassins. Duke Anastasia looks intently at Rondo, acknowledging the young man's ruthless efficiency and high-level stealth. The Duke states plainly that without Rondo's intervention, the situation would have been dire. Seated across from him in the opulent room, the Duke expresses his relief that Rondo was able to help. He muses that the list of individuals capable of hiring those three assassins is likely quite short, which should aid in identifying the culprit. He tells Rondo that he is once again in his debt. As a gesture of gratitude, the Duke offers to provide enough funds to support him for several years, suggesting he could leave and live as a guest of the house for a while. Seeing the boy's uncertainty, the Duke attempts to reassure him, stating that there is nothing for him to worry about. Rondo, still confused, asks for clarification. The Duke explains further, revealing that his own intelligence network has been monitoring the situation. According to his reports, there are no signs of pursuit, nor does it appear that the Edward family is actively searching for anyone. He looks directly at Rondo and delivers the crucial piece of information. Within the Edouard household, the official story is that Rondo took his own life by drinking poison. The Duke advises that as long as Rondo keeps a low profile for now, his survival will likely remain a secret. The boy quietly processes this information, murmuring, "Is that so?" A wave of relief washes over him. He realizes he is finally free, no longer needing to constantly watch his back. He is a free man, and yet a seed of doubt remains. His gaze falls upon Anastasia, who watches him with her hands clasped in concern. The thought of leaving the ducal house now fills him with hesitation. The Duke interrupts his thoughts, stating that he would, of course, be more than happy for Rondo to remain at the estate. He admits that, especially for his daughter Marie's sake, he would be grateful if Rondo chose to stay. Rondo, seated on the couch, confirms he was thinking along the same lines. He tells the Duke that he wishes to remain by Marie's side until the matter is resolved. The Duke expresses his relief, stating that Rondo's cooperation is a great help. The Duke, standing behind his desk, continues. He explains that due to the recent attack by the Connie brothers, he has decided to add another guard to protect Marie more thoroughly. He informs Rondo that from now on, they will both be guarding Marie alongside a female knight named Amanda. Rondo's mind catches on the last two words, a female knight. The Duke clarifies that though she is a woman, her skill is undeniable, ranking among the top 3 strongest warriors in his entire knightly order. He adds that while she could be strong-willed, he believes she and Rondo will manage to work well together. A sudden, intense focus shifts the scene. In a ruined courtyard, Rondo is thrown onto the defensive. An armored foot stomps down as the new knight, Amanda, lunges at him. She mocks him, questioning how he can protect the princess with such pathetic skills, calling him all talk as her attack crashes down. Towering over him, Amanda Magnaria of the Anastasia Knight Order rests her great sword on her shoulder. Her face is a mask of fury as she issues a challenge. If he truly intends to protect, he must be willing to kill her. Rondo thinks to himself that this is insane. He can't possibly kill an important knight of the Duke who has taken him in. From a distance, Amanda announces that by order of the Duke, she is now assigned to be Marie's exclusive guard. She knows his name. The two stand opposite one another. Amanda formally states that the Duke has ordered them to protect Lady Marie together. Rondo, taken aback, simply agrees and offers a polite greeting. Her expression remains cold and accusatory. She addresses him directly, demanding to know why he, Rondo, was away from his post when Lady Marie was attacked by the Connie brothers at the villa. Facing her intense scrutiny, he began to explain his absence. He stated that he had gone to an area inhabited by monsters specifically to test a new magic he had acquired. He continued, reasoning that he couldn't possibly take the wheelchair-bound Lady Marie to such a dangerous place, so he had gone to practice his magic separately. She turned on him, her voice laced with accusation. She concluded that he had prioritized his own magic training over Marie's safety. Looking down, Rondo admitted that it was indeed a careless decision. Her anger erupted. She shouted that his status as a guest was irrelevant, roaring that while he was gone, Marie had been attacked. "What is a guest?" she demanded, incensed that he couldn't even anticipate such a possibility. His expression hardened with resolve. He met her furious gaze and declared firmly that he had made a promise to protect Marie. The memory of that promise surfaced, telling a smiling Marie he would become strong for her, and kneeling before her in the garden, vowing that he would be her shield. The memory faded, but Amanda's interrogation did not. She pressed him, asking if he truly understood that protecting someone meant being prepared to sacrifice his own life. She demanded to know if he possessed such resolve. She continued her lecture, explaining that the most dangerous thing one can do on a mission is to act alongside someone who lacks conviction. Rondo stood silently, absorbing her words. Her eyes narrowed with purpose. She declared that she would test him, both his skill and his resolve, to determine if he was truly worthy of being Marie's guardian. Without another word, she unleashed her power. A swirling vortex of fire, a spell called flame magic, hurtled towards Rondo. He stared in shock, realizing with horror that the attack was real and wondering how she could wield magic. He cries out as the fiery explosion engulfs him, throwing him backward with concussive force. As the smoke billows, Amanda remains steadfast, her great sword held ready. She informs him that since this is a knight's training ground, there is no need for him to hold back. In response, he conjures his own magic, a dark sphere he calls Poison Magic Sphere, Deadly Poison. Across from him, Amanda imbues her great sword with an attribute, causing it to erupt in brilliant flames. She swings her weapon, unleashing a flame mace that surges forward and completely extinguishes his poison sphere upon contact. Rondo stares in disbelief, realizing his spell was nullified, while Amanda looks on with equal surprise. The fiery attack continues past him, crashing into the stone ruins of the training ground. Amanda's voice rings out, demanding to know if that is all he has. The force of the blast sends him stumbling backward. Amanda watches his retreat, a hint of disappointment on her face, though her expression suggests she senses the confrontation is not over. She presses the attack, shouting that he is too slow as she brings her flaming greatsword down. Rondo, caught on the ground amidst the flames, cries out as the blow connects with his guard. Standing over him, she declares with fury that his resolve is completely lacking. Her enchanted sword continues to burn, illuminating her disappointed expression. But then, the situation abruptly reverses. Amanda falls to her knees, gasping, while Rondo stands over her, seemingly unharmed. He looks down at his own arm, where a strange pattern now glows faintly. Amanda, weakened on the ground, looks up in confusion and demands to know what he has done. He looked down at the defeated knight, his expression grim as he revealed that he had directly injected poison into her. Struggling to her knees, Amanda listened as he delivered the grim prognosis. She was now afflicted with a deadly poison and had only 50 seconds left to live. A magical assessment confirmed her status, her health points already diminished. He then offered a truce, stating that if she conceded the fight, he could still administer the antidote. The armored woman stared back, her face a mask of disbelief as she muttered about the nature of his power. Poison magic. Her pride, however, would not allow it. She scoffed at the very idea of begging for her life over what she considered such a trivial poison. Instead of surrendering, she produced a small, glowing crystalline object from within her armor. Rondo watched, a flicker of surprise on his face. Without hesitation, she crushed the magic stone in her gauntlet fist, unleashing a brilliant flash of restorative light that enveloped her entire body. As the light subsided, she stood fully recovered. He recognized the item for what it was, a single-use recovery magic stone, an item so expensive he had never seen one in person before. A confident smirk crossed her face as she noted the poison had vanished, her status confirmed as healthy and her vitality fully restored. Now then, she declared, shall we continue? Rondo was taken aback, internally marveling at the immense cost of a magic stone capable of both nullifying a status ailment and fully restoring one's health. Their confrontation was suddenly interrupted by the arrival of a young noblewoman, flanked by two imposing, fully armored guards. She was addressed with deference as Lady Marie. She smiled warmly, asking Rondo what he was doing in such a place. More than that, she expressed her relief, noting that he was able to stand and that his leg must be all better now. She chides them, asking why two people meant to protect her are fighting amongst themselves. Rondo, looking flustered, tries to correct her, explaining that it wasn't a fight but a test of the other's resolve. Ignoring his explanation entirely, she cheerfully commands them to make up and shake hands. Amanda can only utter a sound of surprise. Obediently, their hands meet in an awkward handshake. Both Rondo and Amanda wear expressions of sheer discomfort, a bead of sweat trickling down each of their faces. Beaming with satisfaction, Anastasia praises them for doing as she asked and cheerfully tells them to get along from now on. Her tone then shifts as she delivers a message. She informs them that her father has summoned them for a talk, adding that he has apparently identified the mastermind behind the assassination attempt on her. Rondo and Amanda listen, the news capturing their full attention. Within the Anastasia estate, a meeting is convened regarding the recent attempt on Marie's life. The evidence, a distinct black knife, lies on the table. Duke Anastasia has gathered his key personnel, believing he has identified the mastermind behind the attack. Seated at his desk, the Duke identifies the culprit as the House of Margrave Greenwich. He quietly expresses his hope that the plan was not conceived by the Margrave himself. Amanda questions this revelation, wondering why the Greenwich family would attack a ducal house. Rondo, standing beside her, immediately grasps the severity, noting that such an action could easily escalate and split the entire kingdom. The Duke acknowledges the danger, musing that a poisoned blade might target him next. He dismisses concern for himself, stating that if anything happens, he wants Rondo and Amanda to focus on protecting Marie. Visibly distressed, Marie pleads with her father not to say such ominous things. She then asks him to explain what is truly happening. In response, the Duke explains that a major factional conflict is brewing within the Igdia kingdom. He clarifies that due to a dispute over a certain policy, his house and the Greenwich family are now locked in a state of opposition, each trying to impose their will on the other. Rondo asks how the Duke was so certain that the Greenwich family was the mastermind. The Duke reveals that the information came from his intelligence unit, which has successfully infiltrated the rival faction. He then presents the knife from the first attack on Marie. He states that this type of weapon is neither manufactured nor sold within Anastasia territory. The Duke's eyes narrow as he delivers the damning conclusion. The only known place to acquire such a knife is within the black markets of the Greenwich Margraviate. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Rondo looks to Marie and makes a solemn vow. He declares that he understands and will protect her, no matter what may come. Marie looks on, her hands clasped in a mixture of relief and apprehension. The knight, Amanda, voices a fierce objection. With her hand pressed to her chest plate, she declares that she cannot entrust Lady Marie's safety to someone with no resolve, vowing to take responsibility and protect her at the cost of her own life. Her protest hangs in the air as she glares sideways. Beside her, Rondo maintains a flat, unimpressed expression, seemingly unfazed by her passionate outburst. Their silent disagreement is interrupted by Duke Anastasia, with his daughter Marie at his side. He states that he is asking for both of their cooperation, then informs them that the first task is related to the party scheduled for next week to celebrate Marie's recovery. He continues, explaining that many guests will be in attendance for the celebration. While he does not wish for the event to become unruly, he sternly instructs them to remain vigilant. From outside the grand estate, a voice confirms their understanding of the orders. On the day of the party, the scene shifts to a bustling port town. Rondo, now clad in an odd outfit of striped trousers and a peculiar hat, walks with Amanda. She asks him about his gift for Marie's recovery celebration. Rondo replies that since he must remain by her side as a guard, he had no time to go buy a present. In response, she smugly produces a neatly wrapped gift box. Rondo stares in shock, wondering aloud when she could have possibly prepared it. She looks at him sternly, calling it pathetic to use work as an excuse to neglect this celebration. She explains that it is a rule for everyone in the Anastasia household to give a present, and that Lady Marie is very much looking forward to it. Rondo is left speechless. She then tells him that one guard is sufficient until the party begins that evening. Pointing towards the crowded street, she orders him to go find something before then. Left alone, Rondo panics, wondering what he could possibly get as a gift. He internally laments his current attire, an outfit borrowed from Rand, realizing the conspicuous hat meant to hide his face is only making him stand out more. He stared at the glittering, expensive jewelry on display, realizing he could never compete with nobles on price. Yet, settling for a cheap, unimpressive item felt just as bad. He was completely stumped. His search eventually led him to a street stall where a handful of rough stones lay on a tray. The proprietor called out, seeing him approach. The shopkeeper cheerfully offered him a chance to test his luck with a magic stone for just 1 silver coin. Intrigued, Rondo asked if there was any chance of finding a poison dragon's magic stone. The vendor replied that if he were lucky, it might be possible. A tall, silent man standing nearby considered this. He knew there were 2 reasons a magic stone couldn't be appraised. Either it held too little magic to be useful, or it contained magic so advanced that modern techniques couldn't even register it. The shopkeeper explained that all his stones were rejects from dungeon appraisals. He painted a tantalizing picture. If Rondo chose the latter type, a stone with S-class magic fit for a great mage could be his. The dream of finding a poison dragon stone wasn't impossible, he insisted. He then leaned closer to Rondo, asking with a sly grin if he'd ever seen anyone actually find a winning stone among them before. Before the vendor could elaborate, the tall man interjected, stating that a merchant shouldn't reveal customer information. The shopkeeper sheepishly agreed. The tall man thought to himself that this was no different than a lottery with no confirmed winners. Changing the subject, the shopkeeper simply told Rondo to take a good look and pick whichever one he liked. With a determined smile, Rondo agreed. He decided that if he couldn't win on price or practicality, a gamble like this was a fittingly audacious gift. All right, he declared, asking to look inside a larger crate of stones as well. The shopkeeper happily obliged. As Rondo plunged his hands into the crate, wondering which one to choose, he suddenly felt a sharp, intense heat flare across his back. He froze, startled by the sensation emanating from his magic crest. He held the dark, fractured stone in his palm. This was the one that had called to him, the source of the strange resonance with his magic crest. Having made his choice, he turned to the shopkeeper. "Mister, I'll take this one," he declared, offering a single silver coin as payment. Before the sale was complete, the tall, silent man interjected, asking Rondo why he had chosen such an ugly stone when there were more beautiful ones available. Rondo acknowledged that the stone was indeed unsightly, musing that perhaps he chose it because it had been cast aside, hidden in the back of the crate. He gazed at the dark object, a small smile on his face. It reminded him of himself, he explained, seemingly ignored by everyone else. With his purchase complete, Rondo quickly excused himself, stating he had to hurry back. As he rushed off down the street, the tall man watched him go, a faint, thoughtful smile playing on his lips. His gaze intensified, a hand coming up to cover one eye as a thrill ran through him. A single thought consumed his mind. What beautiful darkness. Later, from a vantage point high above the city streets, the man watched the world below. He crushed a worthless stone to dust in his gloved hand. "The shopkeeper is not to blame," he murmured before launching himself from the rooftop into the alley below. In the alley, he sat perched above the lifeless body of the street vendor. He mused aloud that he had a tendency to get carried away whenever he encountered something truly beautiful. Night fell over the city, the full moon casting a pale light from a clear sky. At a lavish party, Marie von Anastasia, radiant in a black gown, formally thanks her guests for attending the celebration of her recovery. From the edge of the hall, Rondo, disguised in a servant's uniform, watches the large crowd. He knows it's unlikely, but he can't shake the worry that someone connected to the Edward family might be among the attendees. He reaffirms to himself that the servant's attire was the correct choice, allowing him to act as her guard without standing out. Nearby, a noblewoman, whom Marie addresses as her aunt, presents her with a gift to celebrate. As Marie accepts it with delight, Rondo spots Amanda in the crowd and feels a sense of relief, thinking that with her help, he can use his role as a servant to remain close to Marie. His gaze softens as he watches Marie interact with her aunt. A quiet sense of relief washes over him. He is simply glad to see her looking so well and full of life again. A faint blush colors his cheeks as he watches her smile, her face now adorned with the sparkling new earrings. Lost in the moment, he fails to notice his surroundings and bumps into another guest, jostling the tray of drinks in his hands. He immediately bows his head in apology, but the nobleman he struck barks at him to watch where he is going. The nobleman sneers, accusing Rondo of not only bumping into him, but also staring at Marie. He declares that for a commoner to even think of desiring her is an offense worthy of death. With a condescending smirk, he tells Rondo to be grateful for his current good mood, fueled by the party's wine. Rondo can only stare back, bewildered and thinking to himself, what is wrong with this person? A nobleman named Randy reflects during the party. He muses that after coming this far, he must not do anything foolish, as it would render all his previous efforts meaningless. He approaches Marie Anastasia, greeting her and remarking that it has been a long time. She concurs. From a distance, Rondo watches their exchange with a serious expression. Deciding the situation is stable for now, Rondo turns and walks away from the main hall, thinking to himself that the event seems to have concluded without any major incidents. He pauses by a large window, looking out to see Anastasia safe in the distance. A sense of relief washes over him. As he continues down an upper corridor, Anastasia's voice calls out his name. He turns to see her at the end of the hall, asking if he is all right. She smiles, dismissing any concern for herself, and instead focusing on him. She notes that serving as both a waiter and a guard must have been exhausting for him. Later, on a balcony under the moonlight, Anastasia thanks Rondo, saying that because of him and Amanda, she had a wonderful time. She then asks if he remembers Randy from the party, identifying him as a close friend. Rondo stammers a reply, but is cut short as Anastasia, with a playful hand to her lips, declares that Rondo is her fiancé. The sudden proclamation makes his heart skip a beat in shock. She then turns away, gazing at the moon, and adds that her relationship with Randy has soured significantly. Because of this, she speculates that her marriage partner will likely be changed. Rondo, flustered, asks if that's true. Anastasia questions why he seems so relieved at the news. He averts his gaze, thinking to himself how restrictive and inconvenient the marriages of nobles are. His thoughts are interrupted by Randy's seething voice. The nobleman declared that for a low-born person like Rondo to even approach Anastasia, let alone harbor feelings for her, was an offense worthy of death. He lamented how pitiful Anastasia was to have such a person as a fiancé, though he conceded that his own conversations with her had been strained. He looked over at Anastasia, a grim resolve forming in his mind. Rather than let her be forced to marry someone she didn't love, he would. The young man immediately recoiled from his own dangerous thought, breaking out in a cold sweat. He chastised himself, realizing that such an act would surely get him killed by Duke Anastasia. He had to change the subject, and fast. Turning his gaze to the night sky, he stood beside her on the balcony and commented, "The moon is beautiful, isn't it?" His seemingly innocent words struck Anastasia with the force of a revelation. "Rondo," she exclaimed, her eyes wide. For a moment, they both stood in confused silence. Then, the pieces clicked into place for her. The two of them alone, the moonlit night, and his specific, classic phrasing. It was an old-fashioned, poetic confession of love. Her confusion melted away into pure, unadulterated joy. "Full marks," she cried out, her hands pressed to her cheeks, leaving Rondo utterly bewildered by her ecstatic reaction. She could hardly believe it. She had never expected such a perfect answer. Covering her face in a fluster, she admitted to herself that she was a mean woman for bringing up her engagement just to test how Rondo felt about her. Her sudden, giddy silence left him completely lost. He worried that he had said something wrong or strange, while she simply basked in a moment. He then remembered the item in his pocket. "Oh, that's right. Marie-sama. This is for you," he said, opening his palm to reveal a small, dark, faceted stone. "A gift to celebrate your recovery." She looked at the gift with surprise. "Oh, this is a magic stone?" she asked. He nodded, explaining that he thought she would appreciate a practical gift like this more. He smiles at Anastasia, explaining that he must leave as there is still some tidying up to do. As he walks away, Anastasia clutches the magic stone necklace he gave her, whispering a thank you in his name. Under the light of the full moon, she clasps the gift to her chest, her face alight with pure joy. She exclaims how happy she is and vows to treasure it always. Several days pass, and the scene shifts to a grand ducal mansion. Inside a vast, circular library, Rondo stands with Anastasia, her father Duke Anastasia, and the Knight Captain Knights. Rondo looks towards the Duke and asks if they are about to enter the final stage. The Duke confirms this from his vantage point. He states that, to put it simply, they have gathered all the necessary pieces and leverage to corner Margrave Greenwich. All that remains is the final phase. He turns to face the group, warning them that their opponent is now severely cornered. Because of this desperation, the Duke believes there is a high probability they will make a reckless move, regardless of the consequences. Seated at his desk, the Duke addresses his daughter directly, informing her that they understand the enemy's aim. Their goal is not to kill Marie, but to kidnap her. Anastasia listens with a somber expression, realizing the implication. If she were to be married to someone from the Greenwich family, it would give her father's rivals a chance to recover their standing. Her father continues, explaining the history. There were once talks of a marriage alliance between the Greenwich and Anastasia families. However, After their political policies diverged and they became rivals, he was the one who broke off the engagement. Rondo considers the Duke's words, his brow furrowed in thought. He finds it strange. If Grinage's objective is to become related to the Anastasia family by marriage, he wonders, then why would they attempt an assassination? The Duke concedes that this is a point he also finds perplexing. He confirms that the Grinage side is undoubtedly plotting a forced political marriage and has not given up on wedding Marie. For the sake of their protection, he decides to reveal the identity of the intended suitor, the heir of Margrave Grinage. The man in question is Randy von Grinage, a nobleman with an arrogant air, slicked back hair, and a faint, smug smile. The name strikes Rondo with the force of a physical blow. His eyes widen in sudden, shocked recognition. That man is Grinage. Rondo recognizes the arrogant man, Randy von Grinage, heir to his family and Marie's fiancé. He recalls Marie's own words, that with their families now at odds, her marriage partner would surely change. Yet, based on the man's behavior at the party, it seemed Randy himself hadn't given up on the engagement. This tense situation prompts a meeting in the Anastasia library. Duke Anastasia addresses the group, stating grimly that the possibility of kidnapping is high, and given the recent assassination attempt, murder is also a distinct threat. He requests they remain on high alert for another month. Hearing the Duke's assessment, Rondo turns to Marie with unwavering resolve. He declares that he understands and vows to protect her, no matter what it takes. To this end, a new plan is put into motion. Rondo appears before Marie, now dressed in a sharp butler's uniform. When she asks about his attire, he explains with a confident smile that he is, as she can see, a butler, and she may command him as she wishes. He internally dubs this the butler's skin operation. He then explains the arrangement to Amanda, telling her that her armor makes her suited to act freely as a guard. Amanda, however, looks at him skeptically and questions the nature of this butler's skin disguise. Her brow furrows in irritation. She begins to ask if he's implying there are holes in her protection, but Rondo quickly clarifies his intent. He will serve as a butler to remain by Marie's side and provide support. He elaborates, explaining that if, for example, Marie's food were poisoned, his close proximity would make it easier to handle the situation. Amanda seems to understand the logic. Anastasia, however, is taken aback by the sudden realization that Rondo will now be with her constantly. Despite her initial shock, Anastasia covers her mouth and concedes that she thinks it is a good idea. Her surprise gives way to a bright smile. She declares that she feels much safer with 2 layers of protection. She then informs Rondo that they are invited to the Tesla residence next week, and he must study the etiquette of a butler before then. Amanda looks on, seemingly accepting the new arrangement. Faced with his first formal task, Rondo is momentarily flustered, wondering what the proper response should be. Amanda immediately chides him, pointing out that his speech is not yet butler-like. Rondo quickly accepts the instruction, acknowledging his new role. 1 week later, at the Anastasia estate, the night Amanda stands guard at the main doors, her posture unwavering. Inside, Anastasia gazes at her reflection, a gentle smile on her face as she completes her preparations for the evening's engagement. Her preparations are concluded by Rondo, now in a butler's uniform, who informs Lady Marie that the carriage is ready. Anastasia turns, a pleased expression on her face, and thanks him as another maid bows deeply. As he leads the way, lantern in hand, Anastasia remarks that he has become quite the convincing butler. She adds that with him accompanying her, she won't feel embarrassed visiting the Tesla estate. He thanks her, then reports on the due diligence he performed. He explains that the invitation is from a childhood friend from the Tesla family, and that his investigation found no connection to the Grinage family, assuring her she can enjoy the visit without worry. Touched by his thoroughness, Anastasia softly says his name. He, in turn, reaffirms his duty as her guard, promising that no harm will come to her. She finds his declaration reliable and reassuring. Despite his confident words, a flicker of hesitation crosses his face. Noticing this, Anastasia asks him directly if he thinks it's absurd to go out during such a dangerous time, even for an invitation. Before he can fully process her question, her expression hardens with resolve. She states firmly that it is precisely because it is dangerous that she must go out. She elaborates, explaining that if she were to hide away after the assassination attempt, it would become a public scandal for the ducal house. It is at times like these, she insists, that she must appear in public to demonstrate her strength and well-being. Hearing her resolute words, Rondo quietly acknowledges her strength. With the decision made, Anastasia declares it is time to depart. Rondo affirms, ready to proceed to the Tesla estate as Amanda watches on. He arrived at the magnificent Tesla estate, where a young woman with dark hair and twin pigtails immediately took notice of him. From her seat on the veranda, she watched him approach, murmuring to herself that he must be the one. The young woman, a childhood friend, turned to Anastasia with a teasing smirk. Anastasia, caught off guard by her friend's pointed interest in her new butler, could only stammer in response. Her attention then snapped directly to Rondo. She called out, "Hey you, the butler," and he immediately straightened up, replying with a crisp, "Yes." She leaned forward, her expression a mix of curiosity and challenge. "So you're the one protecting Marie, are you?" she asked, using Anastasia's first name. Rondo, maintaining his composure, simply inquired how she was doing. He responded with a practiced, cheerful smile. Yes, I am the guard in Butler, he confirmed. I am working hard every day to earn the keep I am provided. His polite answer was met with a blunt, unexpected question. Are you an idiot? She asked, causing Rondo to react with a startled huh, as Anastasia looked on with concern. The girl's playful demeanor vanished, replaced by a fierce intensity. Pointing a finger directly at him, she commanded, You'd better protect Marie properly. With the warning delivered, the party set out. Their carriage wound its way along a treacherous mountain pass as dusk began to fall, escorted by armed riders. Riding alongside, Amanda's gaze was sharp and vigilant, her hand never far from her greatsword as she scanned the rocky cliffs for any sign of danger. Noticing her tense posture, Rondo rode up beside her. Do I seem that unreliable? He asked, a slightly wry expression on his face as he looked from her to the ornate carriage. He sits inside the carriage with Anastasia, who asks if his earlier bravado was something suggested by the Tesla family. She muses that appearing unreliable might make their opponents careless, to which Rondo quietly agrees. He then reassures her with a confident smile, promising that he will protect Lady Marie properly. He adds that he believes this is what she meant, thinking that his unassuming appearance could be an advantage. Anastasia seems pleased by his declaration, but clarifies her question, asking if he is doing this as part of his job as a retainer. Rondo appears momentarily flustered, struggling for a response. Before he can answer, the carriage is violently thrown to one side. Anastasia cries out in surprise as the sudden, powerful jolt sends her tumbling from her seat. Reacting instantly, Rondo braces himself and reaches out to steady her, shouting for her to stay close to him. Alarmed, Anastasia calls out his name. He listens intently, his expression hardening. He immediately suspects an attack, but a quick assessment reveals an unnerving silence from outside the carriage. His mind races. If they were under attack, Amanda and the other guards should already be engaged in combat. With a surge of dread, he peers out the carriage window. The scene outside is devastatingly still. On the dusty road, Amanda and another guard lie motionless, their weapons fallen beside them. A dark pool of blood spreads from beneath the female knight. Staring in disbelief, Rondo's eyes widen in horror at the sight of his fallen protector. Amanda-san, he gasps, struggling to comprehend what has happened. Atop the carriage roof stands the assailant, Zayn. With his sword held ready, his other hand glows with a bright circle of magical energy, the silent weapon that brought down their escort. The soft thud from above was just enough to break the silence within the carriage. Rondo's head snapped up, his eyes wide with alarm, while Anastasia clutched her dress, her expression filled with growing dread. Before either could process the sound, a blinding flash of energy erupted from the roof. The attacker, Zayn, unleashed his power, and the entire carriage was instantly obliterated, exploding into a shower of splintered wood and debris. Plummeting through the air, Rondo twists his body to shield Anastasia, his arms wrapped securely around her as the rocky ground rushes up to meet them. As they fall past the sheer cliff face, Anastasia cries out his name. He shouts back, urging her not to let go. In a desperate, last-second maneuver, Rondo unleashes his power, casting Poison Shell. A large, translucent sphere forms around them, absorbing the force of their impact as they strike the ground. Safely on the ground, he immediately turns to her, asking if she is all right. Anastasia, looking at him with wide eyes, remarks that his poison magic is quite convenient. He explains that the technique creates a shell with elasticity by semi-solidifying poison for a brief moment. It's a skill he devised on the spot once before when he tried to save a cat falling from a cliff. He continues, noting that while it can be used for defense, its effect only lasts for 2 to 3 seconds, comparing it to a lightning magic spell, a thunderball. Suddenly, his attention snaps to a figure on the clifftop above. Sensing a new threat, Rondo instantly casts Poison Ball, the poison, launching a sphere of debilitating magic towards the stranger. The magical projectile erupts in a bright flash of energy against the distant cliff face. The man, completely unfazed, steps forward. He warns Rondo not to do anything reckless, explaining that he needs to capture the young lady alive. Rondo's expression hardens with defiance. The stranger, Zayn, addresses him with unnerving familiarity. It's been a while, Rondo, he says. Shocked, Rondo demands to know how he knows his name. Zayn reveals he has investigated him, fully aware that he is a poison magic user. He stands poised on a high rock, observing the pair below. He muses aloud that a wielder of poison magic, a rare art among the outlier schools, has not been seen for centuries, perhaps even a millennium. The fact that such power belongs to a boy who carries an aura of deep misfortune is, to him, a curious development. Hearing this, Rondo's gaze sharpens, his resolve hardening as he stands protectively before Anastasia. The sight sends a shiver of pure ecstasy through Zayn. He revels in what he calls a beautiful twist of fate. This sorrowful poison magic, born from the trauma of nearly being murdered by his own father. The sheer novelty of it all is more than he can bear to simply watch. With a cry of anticipation, he launches himself from the rock, eager to witness Rondo's power firsthand. Rondo quickly assesses the situation. The enemy's primary goal is to capture Lady Marie alive, yet this man is fixated on him for some reason. The most prudent course of action is to create distance between Anastasia and their attacker. Zayn, however, lands with a taunt, beckoning Rondo forward. In response, Zayn unleashes his own power, lightning magic, thunderclad. His body erupts in arcs of electricity as he closes the distance in an instant. Rondo can only gasp at the blinding speed before the man is upon him, a blur of motion and crackling energy. His eyes widen in alarm, and he instinctively raises a hand, poison magic beginning to coalesce at his fingertips in a desperate defense. But the attacker is relentless, laughing with exhilaration as he presses his assault. The tingling sensation of his own power only fuels his excitement as Rondo scrambles to evade the lightning-fast strike. He throws himself aside just in time. The attack misses him by a hair's breadth, slamming into a nearby tree and gouging the trunk. Too close, Rondo thinks, his heart pounding. His opponent pauses, a sword in one hand and a knife in the other. He remarks coolly that against poison magic that can kill with a single touch, engaging in close-quarters combat might be unwise. From behind the tree, Rondo realizes with a jolt that this man is not just a mage. He is a trained swordsman, armed and ready. Before he can fully process this, the knife is suddenly flying towards him, embedding itself in the tree trunk just inches from his face. The sheer speed and accuracy of the throw leave him stunned. He pieces the events together in his mind. The initial target was Marie von Anastasia, threatened by a maid. But he recalls that an investigation revealed the maid was merely following instructions. It was impossible for a commoner to obtain a knife laced with rare purple dragon poison. The realization dawns on him. Someone else had given the knife to the maid and orchestrated the entire assassination attempt. His eyes lock onto his opponent, the truth solidifying into fury. "So it was you," he snarls, as his body erupts with electrical energy. He thrusts his hands forward, unleashing a powerful spell. Lightning magic, thunder strike. The spell dissipates harmlessly. Rondo collapses to the ground, coughing blood, his attack utterly negated. Zayn stands over him, arms crossed and completely unscathed. "Correct answer," he states coolly. From a distance, a horrified Anastasia screams Rondo's name. In a forest clearing, Rondo lies face down on the ground, groaning in pain. Nearby, Anastasia is also collapsed, while a man with a distinctive lightning bolt scar on his face stands over them, his sheathed sword on his back. The man turns his attention from Rondo to Anastasia. He tells her to listen carefully and remember his name, explaining that it is his custom to have his victims know his name before he delivers the final blow. He glances back at Rondo, expressing a cold admiration that the boy is still alive after his initial attack. Leaning down towards the prone youth, he introduces himself, Albrecht. Grabbing a handful of Rondo's hair, he lifts his head and commands him to remember the name so it can be known in the afterlife. From the ground, a horrified Anastasia cries out Rondo's name. Albrecht then addresses her directly, informing her that his orders are to capture her alive and asking if she understands the implication. His gaze is menacing as he looks down at Anastasia, remarking that as long as she doesn't die, any condition she ends up in is acceptable. His cruel words hang in the air. As Anastasia stares back, her eyes wide with terror, a sphere of crackling dark energy begins to coalesce beside him. With a swift motion, Albrecht unleashes his power, sending not one, but a barrage of 4 destructive magical orbs flying across the clearing. The projectiles slam into a large kite shield, which has suddenly appeared to intercept them. A female knight in full-plate armor stands firm, absorbing the multiple impacts as they erupt against her defense. She braces herself against the overwhelming force, her body enveloped in the light and smoke of the explosions, refusing to yield. The barrage culminates in a single, massive detonation that engulfs the knight completely, shaking the very ground. She emerges from the billowing smoke and dust of the explosion, her armor unscratched. The assassin, calling himself Albrecht, watches from a distance, letting out a dismissive scoff. She turns her attention to Anastasia, asking if she is unharmed. Anastasia confirms she is fine, but her worried gaze falls upon Rondo, who is still incapacitated. Amanda instructs her to take an item to Rondo while she keeps the enemy occupied. She presses a small, crystalline object into Anastasia's hand, identifying it as a recovery magic stone. The knight explains that it's her last one, and that a similar stone is what just saved her from the blast. Her expression hardening with resolve, Anastasia clutches the stone and acknowledges the instruction. From his perch on a nearby rock, the assassin Zayn looks down on the scene with disdain. He remarks that it would have been better for her if she had just stayed down. He then offers to help her become famous in the underworld if she's so eager to die. Leaping forward with his blade drawn, he shouts for her to remember the name Albrecht as she perishes. His blade clashes against Amanda's greatsword in a shower of sparks. The two warriors lock eyes, their faces masks of grim determination as they struggle for dominance. Meanwhile, Anastasia reaches Rondo's side. She thanks him and presents the recovery magic stone, explaining it's from Amanda. As he looks up, he sees a gentle light emanating from her. His attention is then drawn back to the fierce battle raging nearby. He watches, his face a mask of shock and concern, as Amanda continues to fend off the assassin's relentless attacks. He can only watch as the assassin's assault forces Amanda back, her feet digging into the ground as she struggles to parry a powerful blow. The skeletal remains of a forest beast lie forgotten nearby as the assassin smirks, confident in his advantage, while Amanda lets out a furious roar of exertion. She parries another of Zayn's swift attacks, her greatsword clashing against his blades. Despite the ferocity of the duel, her focus shifts for a moment as she shouts an urgent command back towards the walkway. "You understand, don't you, Rondo?" He hears her voice clearly from his position on the high stone walkway, Anastasia standing silently beside him. Amanda lays out a grim condition for his participation, stating that if he is to act as a guard, they must first establish one rule. Her face is set with grim determination as she clarifies the rule. Should they face a formidable foe, she will act as the shield. Rondo's sole duty, she insists, is to take Lady Marie and focus only on escaping. Rondo recoils in disbelief, protesting that he could never abandon her to die right before his eyes. Amanda's voice cuts him off, sharp and unyielding. She declares that his sentiment is precisely why she cannot trust him, ordering him not to hesitate, even if she appears to be on the verge of death. She turns away from him, her fists clenched at her sides. She warns him sternly not to trample on her resolve with misplaced sentimentality, demanding to know if he understands her command. Her gaze is sharp and unwavering as she reiterates her point with absolute finality. The highest priority is Anastasia's safety. He must escape with the lady, even if it means leaving Amanda herself to die. Taking in her words, Rondo looks down and assesses their tactical situation. To the east, the path is blocked by the cliff that collapsed earlier. To the west flows a river. To the south, Amanda continues her desperate battle. The assessment leads to a single, stark conclusion. Their only path of retreat is to the north. He and Anastasia now stand on the canyon floor, looking toward their only exit. His eyes fix on a rope bridge that marks the start of the northern path. He realizes that a forest lies just beyond it. If they can reach its cover, they have a chance to hide and successfully flee. The plan seems viable, but a glance over his shoulder reveals a critical flaw. The assassin is unnaturally fast, and there is still a significant distance to the bridge. Rondo understands with a sinking feeling that if they are spotted, they will be overtaken in an instant. He steels his resolve, his expression hardening. "But I have to go," he declares. Anastasia stands beside him, her face filled with concern. His gaze shifts to the narrow canyon path leading to a distant bridge. He lays out the plan, instructing Anastasia to run across it at full speed as soon as he gives the signal. When he asks if she can manage, she confirms, "Yes, I'll be fine." He continues, telling her he will follow right behind and that she must not look back, no matter what. Anastasia agrees, "I understand." In the background, the clash of steel rings out as Amanda desperately holds back Zayn, shouting, "What are you doing, Rondo? Hurry up and go." Seeing his opportunity, Zayn unleashes a spell, Flame Magic, Bomb. A ball of fire erupts towards them as he taunts. "Are you out of tricks already? I've seen that move before." Spotting the danger, Rondo shouts, "Now, Lady Marie." At his signal, both he and Anastasia break into a sprint, racing down the path toward the distant bridge. Behind them, Amanda continues her desperate struggle, parrying Zayn's electrically charged blade. Despite Rondo's warning, Anastasia glances back over her shoulder, her eyes widening in horror at the sight of Zayn crackling with energy as he prepares another powerful strike. He has a sudden, chilling realization. No matter how fast they run, the one waiting to intercept them can easily catch them. As this thought flashes through his mind, Amanda screams Anastasia's name in warning. Instead of continuing his escape, Rondo pivots and lunges back towards the fight. He leaps through the air, his hand outstretched, and unleashes his own magic, shouting, "Mortal poison." His hand connects squarely with Zayn's chest. The assassin's eyes widen in shock as the poison magic takes hold. Below, Anastasia watches, stunned, as Rondo lands with a look of grim satisfaction. "All right, it hit," he thinks. From her position on the bridge, Amanda looks back just in time to see the impact. A massive surge of dark, lightning-like energy erupts from Zayn's body, a testament to the potent poison now coursing through him. The female knight shields her eyes from the explosive aftermath of the spell, while Anastasia stares, wide-eyed with shock, at the unfolding chaos. Her shock turns to despair as she reaches the edge of the chasm, only to find the rope bridge has vanished, cutting off their escape. Meanwhile, Rondo stares up in disbelief. Zayn stands over him, completely unharmed. The assassin scoffs, revealing it was a shame, but he had anticipated fighting a poison magic user and had used a poison-warding magic stone beforehand. Rondo realizes his ultimate attack was completely ineffective. He continues to taunt the boy, questioning why he would deliberately use an instant death poison spell. He notes that it would have been better to avoid close combat. Rondo can only listen, a cold sweat breaking out on his brow as the gravity of his miscalculation sinks in. Suddenly, A tremendous crash echoes through the canyon as the cliff face begins to crumble. Zayn smirks, casually remarking that this, too, is merely a technique. Rondo whips his head around in alarm. The collapse has widened the chasm significantly, leaving Amanda stranded on the far side, completely separated from Rondo and Anastasia. Turning his back on the now isolated knight, he addresses Rondo and Anastasia. He declares that their escape route is now gone, and that he has successfully driven off the annoying fly. He faces them with chilling finality, stating that it would not be beautiful to waste any more time. Rondo instinctively steps in front of Anastasia, shielding her from the assassin's predatory gaze. A cruel, confident smile spreads across his face. He asks rhetorically if he should now end things for them, beautifully. Despite the overwhelming odds, the fear in Rondo's eyes is replaced by a hardened glint of defiance. Standing on the opposite cliff, the assassin Zayn declares his personal rule. A job must be finished within 5 minutes, as anything longer is not beautiful. He unleashes a powerful lightning spell, Thunder Drop, into the chasm. Far below, Rondo stands with Anastasia, noting that with only 30 seconds remaining, the assassin has pushed him to his limit. He compliments his foe for this, but declares that this is the end for the poison magic user. In response to Rondo's power, a colossal serpentine beast made of swirling dark energy erupts from the ground. This is the poison magic dragon, Shiri. It towers over the landscape, dwarfing Rondo and Anastasia who stand at its base. Zayn watches as his lightning strikes the massive form, realizing with alarm that the poison dragon is absorbing the electrical energy. Below, Rondo holds his hand over a glowing magic circle, staring in awe at the spectacle he has unleashed. As the lightning continues to pour into the creature, Zayn identifies it with shock. The poison dragon, an ultimate magic from a legend thought lost 1,000 years ago. The sheer concentration of power causes the very ground beneath the dragon to shatter and collapse. The devastating clash of magic leaves a vast, deep chasm carved into the earth where the assassin once stood. On the remaining edge, Rondo and Anastasia look down into the newly formed abyss. Anastasia calls out his name, her voice laced with concern. Rondo turns to her, a bead of sweat on his temple and a strained smile on his face, remarking wryly that their foe has quite literally fallen into the pit of despair. He then instructs Anastasia to stay back, warning that the crumbling cliff edge is dangerous. He tells her he will go to confirm the situation and urges her to be careful. Rondo walks alone to the edge of the immense, dark crater. He stands before the abyss, peering down into the smoking depths left by the destructive force of his magic. His expression is grim as he speaks to Anastasia. He murmurs the assassin's name, Albrecht, acknowledging the man's skill in shifting the dragon's trajectory at the last second. Rondo reasons that even if he survived, there is no escape from the chasm. He concludes that the man was a dangerous foe, and if this was the work of the Grindage family, then Lady Marie's life is in even greater peril. Deep within the darkness of the chasm, the assassin Albrecht, also known as Zayn, smirks. He realizes that in a desperate attempt to keep his own footing from crumbling away, Rondo had inadvertently shifted the dragon's path just enough to spare his life as well. The assassin stood on the cliff's edge, looking down into the chasm. He spoke with cold disdain, his voice carrying to Rondo below. "How lame," he remarked. "You're not beautiful at all." Rondo, at the bottom of the ravine, looked up in stunned silence. He then raised a hand, unleashing a torrent of energy. "Thunderbird," he roared. A colossal bird formed of pure lightning materialized and dove towards the chasm floor. Below, Rondo's eyes widened in horror as he realized his magic was depleted, leaving him completely unable to counter. From the precipice above, Anastasia cried out his name in terror. "Rondo!" He turned his head toward her desperate shout, his own face a mask of shock. The lightning creature descended upon him, its crackling energy illuminating the dark ravine. Just as the attack was about to connect, the assassin's expression flickered with surprise. A blinding flash of light erupted from the point of impact. The light vanished, leaving an unnerving silence in its wake. In another place entirely, sunlight filtered through a dense canopy. A small, winged lizard with large, curious eyes perched on a branch near a giant mushroom, its head tilted as shimmering motes of light drifted through the air. A groan escaped Rondo's lips as pain registered, and he slowly regained consciousness. He pushed himself up slightly, his eyes blinking open in confusion. "It hurts," he mumbled, looking at his hand on the soft ground. "Where is this?" He managed to sit up, taking in the bizarre scenery. He was in a dense forest, surrounded by towering trees and massive, otherworldly mushrooms. "Where am I?" he asked again, his voice lost in the strange, quiet woods. The forest was a place of bizarre flora. Giant fungi reached toward the canopy like trees themselves, their gnarled roots twisting over the damp earth. It was a silent, primeval world, utterly alien and far from the chasm where he had faced certain death. He awakens with a start, his eyes widening in confusion. He calls out for Marie, but his gaze falls upon a woman lying on the ground before him, her skirt in disarray, and he lets out a flustered cry. Scrambling into a sitting position, his face flushed red, he recognizes the prone figure of Anastasia. He shouts her name, Marie-sama, utterly embarrassed by their situation in a strange, mushroom-filled clearing. As Anastasia begins to stir and sit up, he points frantically, exclaiming about the state of her clothes. She lets out a small shriek, finally noticing the damage herself. Now standing, Anastasia shyly holds her tattered skirt. She notes how torn it is and spots a scrap of the fabric caught on a high branch, wondering how it got there. She then turns to Rondo, suggesting that perhaps they were somehow thrown or teleported to this location. Rondo's mind races back to the critical moment. He explains that just as Albrecht's attack was about to strike them, he saw Anastasia's pouch emit a bright light. Surprised by his account, Anastasia looks down at the small pouch at her side. She recalls that it contains the magic stones Rondo had given her and wonders what could be inside. Opening it, she finds that the contents are no longer whole. The magic stones have been shattered into numerous small, dark fragments. She presents the shattered pieces to Rondo, theorizing that the stones must have activated, transporting them to their current location. Rondo examines the fragments and confirms that, though broken, they are indeed the magic stones he gave her. He reacts with utter shock, unable to believe such a thing is possible. Anastasia explains that this means they must be teleportation magic stones, an item so incredibly rare and expensive that even her father, a duke, would struggle to acquire them. Rondo is stunned to learn of their immense value. The revelation leaves Rondo pondering why such a priceless item was being sold at the shady-looking stall where he bought them. As he puzzles over the memory of the sly shopkeeper, Anastasia covers her mouth, stifling a giggle at the absurdity of it all. Anastasia beams, her face alight with a gentle smile. She looks toward Rondo and tells him that he has saved her once again. He looks back at her, standing amidst the strange, oversized mushrooms of the forest. He disagrees, explaining that this time, she was the one who saved him, as he would have likely been killed by Amanda upon their return. Anastasia chuckles, conceding that it might be true. His expression turns serious as he declares they must first escape the forest. But as he turns to lead the way, Anastasia's eyes widen in terror. She screams his name, warning him about something directly behind him. Rondo spins around to face a massive, gnarled treant. The creature is utterly still, its form twisted and lifeless. A status indicator materializes, confirming its condition, dead, with 0 health points. He turns back to a now calm Anastasia, reassuring her that everything is fine. He remarks that his attack was instantaneous, as usual, and that as long as an opponent cannot use recovery magic, he can manage. Anastasia seems impressed, noting his knowledge of monsters. Rondo explains that the creature is a treant, a plant-type monster, sometimes referred to as a forest assassin. He considers the dead creature, reasoning that since treants are native to the entire continent, its presence doesn't help them determine their location. With that, he concludes they have no choice but to press forward. Turning to Anastasia with renewed resolve, Rondo lays out a plan. He will take the lead and handle any monster encounters. He asks that she, whom he addresses as Marie-sama, follow closely and avoid injury. She agrees, placing her trust in him. He glances back, checking on her. With a determined expression, Anastasia confirms that she is fine. As they walk away from the giant mushrooms, Rondo remarks that it's fortunate they landed in a forest. When Anastasia asks why, he explains that this type of environment tends to have fewer monsters that form swarms. He explains to Anastasia that while his poison magic's weakness is dealing with multiple opponents at once, a forest environment provides ample cover should they encounter such a threat. As they walk, Anastasia's gaze falls upon a strange, dark, finger-like fruit. She notes that she has never seen such a fruit before, and Rondo turns to look. He wonders aloud if it might be edible, but Anastasia expresses her doubt, cautioning that its color looks far too dangerous. Before she can stop him, he takes a large bite. Anastasia cries out in alarm, but Rondo calmly explains that while it contains a little poison, it's quite refreshing. He offers her the fruit, but she recoils, adamantly refusing. He gently tells the still hesitant Anastasia that it's important to stay properly hydrated while in the forest. He continues, explaining that he heard her swallowing several times as they walked, a sure sign of her thirst. He assures her it will be all right, as he can instantly detoxify it for her. A glowing magic circle materializes as he casts his spell. Neutralize poison, weaken poison. With the toxin nullified, he hands the fruit to Anastasia, who hesitantly takes it, understanding what he has done. She takes a tentative bite, and her expression immediately transforms into one of pure delight. She exclaims that it's both sweet and delicious. Still savoring the taste, she turns back to Rondo and asks if she might have another. He readily agrees. He then considers that having to suffer through the poison, even for an instant, is an ordeal. A new idea strikes him, and he suggests they try a little experiment. Anastasia remarks that he can endure it because the fruit is so delicious. His experiment was a success. Anastasia took a bite of the fruit, her eyes closing in delight as she found it delicious and not at all bitter, allowing her to eat it without any discomfort. Surprised by the result, she turned to him and asked what he had done. He raised a finger, explaining that he had cast a spell called mild poison. He continued with a confident smile, clarifying that mild poison is a magic that dilutes a poison, effectively turning it into a kind of medicine, a recovery spell for poisons, in a way. With this, she could eat without worry. Delighted, Anastasia happily asked for another piece. As they enjoyed their small meal, a rustling sound echoed from the dense undergrowth nearby. The sound drew Rondo's attention. He squinted, muttering in frustration that the tall grass made it difficult to see anything. Suddenly, a massive, bee-like creature burst from the foliage with a loud buzzing. Startled, Rondo immediately shouted for Anastasia to get back. In response to the threat, he cast a spell, shouting, "Poison wall." Anastasia, recognizing the creature, urgently warned him that it was a soldier bee and its sting would cause paralysis for hours. Rondo, however, was confident, telling her to leave it to him since it involved poison. Anastasia remained worried, recalling his supposed weakness to poison magic. His confidence was short-lived. As he faced the single creature, he was informed that soldier bees are swarm monsters. Before him, an entire swarm emerged from the trees, their buzzing filling the air. His face fell, a bead of sweat trickling down his temple. He grimaced, realizing with utter dread that he had just encountered the one enemy he wanted to face the least. A powerful spell, Poison Ball, fierce poison, detonates in mid-air, obliterating a giant, monstrous bee in a violent, dark explosion. In the background, Rondo stands amidst the tall foliage, the source of the potent magic. As more of the giant bees swarm, Anastasia extends her arm, urgently shouting a warning to Rondo about an attack coming from his left. He turns his head, acknowledging her cry. The insectoid monster buzzes with irritation. Anastasia's warning continues as she spots another threat, pointing and alerting Rondo that more are approaching from the right as well. He glances over, his eyes widening in alarm. The swarm has multiplied, filling the air around them with a cacophony of buzzing wings. One of the giant bees breaks from the horde, speeding past a fleeing Rondo as he tries to put distance between himself and the relentless attackers. He stops, realizing he cannot simply outrun them. He internally weighs his options. A single, powerful, fierce poison spell would be a one-hit kill, but it takes too long to prepare against so many. He concludes that a rapid-fire barrage of the weaker, debilitating poison would be more efficient and immediately unleashes the spell, vowing not to let them pass. With a look of grim determination, he challenges the bees to come at him, but realizes that even with rapid shots, he's bound to miss some. Just then, a bee breaks through his defense and grabs him. From a distance, Anastasia cries out his name in terror. Ensnared by the creatures, Rondo is silhouetted against the sky as he unleashes a powerful wave of energy, a fierce poison attack radiating directly from his body. The potent magic takes effect, dissolving one of the bees into a bubbling mess. Rondo shouts an apology to Anastasia, warning her that a few got past him and are heading her way. He tells her not to lose to the poison as another of his debilitating poison orbs strikes a different bee. Her expression hardens with resolve. Watching the bees close in, she declares that she can fight too. She begins to cast her own spell, Poison Ball, debilitating poison, ready to defend herself. She extends her hands, unleashing a torrent of wind magic. A swirling vortex, a wind blast, erupts from her palms, engulfing the approaching swarm of soldier bees. The violent gale rips through the insectoid ranks, tearing the creatures apart in a chaotic whirlwind. Seeing the spell's effectiveness, Rondo shouts in admiration, praising Lady Marie's incredible and convenient area of effect attack. She clenches her fists, triumphant. His celebration is cut short as a surviving soldier bee plunges its stinger into Anastasia's shoulder. She cries out in pain. Rondo's eyes widen in terror, recognizing the creature. He knows its poison paralyzes for hours, leaving a victim completely vulnerable. As she falters, he shouts her name, promising to administer an antidote immediately. He quickly launches a wind shot to dispatch the remaining threats, his face contorted with a fierce determination that startles Anastasia. A moment passes, and he stares at her, utterly dumbfounded. He explains his bewilderment, telling the worried Anastasia that she appears to be immune to the poison. He speculates that the microdose of poison heat applied to the fruit she ate must be responsible. A wave of relief washes over him, and he smiles, glad for the unexpected outcome. Now resting atop a giant mushroom, Anastasia observes that with this development, poisonous creatures are no longer a concern. Rondo agrees, though he adds that he would still prefer to avoid any more soldier bees. As night falls on their fourth day of survival, the crescent moon watches over the forest. Rondo's gaze softens with concern as he turns to Anastasia, asking if she is feeling cold. Huddled together for warmth within the hollow of a great tree's roots, she looks back at him and quietly reassures him that she is fine. She rests beside him, her eyes closed after the day's ordeal. Rondo watches over her, thinking to himself that while the days are manageable, the nights in the forest are chillingly cold. He turns his attention to her as she opens her eyes. He remarks that as the cherished, sole daughter of Duke Anastasia, she must have lived a life completely free from hardship. He continues, listing the recent struggles she has endured, being stung by bees and having to sleep on the hard ground without a bed. He presumes this kind of harsh living is an entirely new experience for her. Anastasia, taken aback, can only manage a small sound of surprise. He recalls how she ate poisonous fruit for 4 days to survive, yet has not uttered a single complaint. Since they are alone, he encourages her to vent any frustrations she might be holding back. Anastasia seems to dismiss the very idea of complaining. In response to his concern, a bright, genuine smile spreads across her face. She declares that she is actually having fun. Her answer leaves him utterly bewildered. Fun? He repeats, unable to comprehend her words. He points out the uncertainty of their situation, questioning how she can feel that way when they have no idea if they will ever escape the forest. A slight blush colors her cheeks as she averts her gaze, beginning to explain her reasoning. Well, that's because being with you like this, Rondo. She trails off. He looks on, still confused by her meaning. The tension breaks as they both begin to laugh, blushing. She clarifies that this kind of experience is completely new and fresh for her. Rondo, finally understanding, laughs along and remarks that she is truly a strong person. The lighthearted moment continues. Anastasia advises him that stress is the enemy of beauty, so he should feel free to vent any of his own worries to her. Rondo simply offers his thanks. As he speaks, the night air seems to grow colder. Anastasia remarks on the chill, shivering and wrapping her arms around herself for warmth as a breeze rustles the leaves in the dark forest canopy. To ward off the encroaching chill, Rondo removes his vest. He moves behind Anastasia, draping it over her shoulders and instructing her to wear it. She accepts with a quiet thank you, her face flushing. Her heart pounds as she realizes it's not just the garment, but Rondo's own warmth that she feels on her back. A short while later, having found a small alcove for shelter, Rondo keeps watch. He observes their surroundings from the base of a large, gnarled root and reports that there seem to be no monsters in the immediate vicinity. His vigil is interrupted when Anastasia softly calls his name. Startled, he turns back towards her, stammering a reply. She gazes at him, her expression now serious and unreadable. She remains silent, her profile outlined against the dark cave wall, holding his attention. He looks back, a question in his eyes, waiting for her to speak. The air grows thick with unspoken intensity. Their eyes lock, and as his heart begins to race, Rondo can only breathe her name, Marie Summa. In response, her hand reaches out towards him. Inside the relative safety of a hollowed-out tree trunk, Anastasia suggests to Rondo that it's time for him to rest. He turns away, replying that he will remain on watch outside for a while longer. She quietly agrees, her expression tinged with concern as she watches him under the starry night sky. Alone in the clearing, Rondo clenches his fist, muttering curses at himself in frustration for their predicament. Sometime later, under the daylight sky, Rondo kneels in despair. His vision blurs as he questions his own senses, looking over at Anastasia, who has collapsed from exhaustion nearby. After several weeks wandering the forest, their situation has stabilized. Rondo joyfully bites into a large piece of cooked meat, exclaiming how delicious it is. He tells a recovering Anastasia that the roasted meat, from a creature called a mortal bear, is all thanks to the fire magic she was able to grant him. He expresses his surprise at being able to use 2 types of magic, but Anastasia clarifies his newfound ability. She explains that it's more of a bonus, just a beginner-level fire spell. As the meat sizzles over their makeshift fire pit, Anastasia chuckles, expressing her gratitude that they can eat roasted meat and that she was able to be of service. His brief moment of relief passes, and Rondo's face grows tense with worry. He wonders if they will ever truly escape the forest, knowing that Lady Marie is nearing her limit and they must find an exit soon. Suddenly, a massive beast wreathed in flames emerges from the trees. A fire bear, its health and power evident. Rondo stares in shock, a realization dawning on him. He's found one. His shock gives way to grim resolve. Internally, he decides they won't be needing bear meat for a while. He raises a hand to focus his magic, shouting for Anastasia to get back as he prepares to face the monster. He responded to the threat immediately, unleashing his poison magic. A volley of toxic orbs, a spell he called Poison Ball Mortar, flew through the air towards the massive beast. The spell struck true. The fire bear, its flaming body now covered in bubbling poison, succumbed to the potent attack. Its life force depleted, the creature fell lifeless. With the immediate danger gone, Anastasia turned to him, her expression questioning. She asked if he, too, had heard another sound mixed with the monster's final cries, a voice. He looked towards the direction of the sound, considering her words. They stood together in the forest clearing, dwarfed by the immense, still form of the defeated fire bear. She insisted that she truly did hear it, a human voice, even if the words were indistinct. Hearing this, Rondo proposed they investigate. As they proceeded, he urged caution, reminding her that they couldn't assume the stranger was friendly. Anastasia, however, pointed up a nearby cliff face, her excitement growing. She was certain the voice was human and was coming from up there. His expression tightened with concern. The memory of their last encounter with a stranger, the assassin Albrecht, flashed through his mind, filling him with apprehension. But Anastasia's desperation overrode his caution. She declared emphatically that after weeks of isolation, they couldn't afford to miss this chance for human contact. He looked at her, realizing she was nearing her limit. He concluded that, despite the potential danger, they had to take the risk and seek out the source of the voice. He agreed to go, but instructed her to hide while he went to confirm if it was safe. As he began to scale the rocky wall, Anastasia firmly stated that she would go too, refusing to stay behind. He and Anastasia arrived at the source of the voice to find a scene of immediate peril. A small, terrified girl with pointed ears cowering before a massive, armored bear. Seeing the girl under attack, Rondo knew he had to act immediately. He would worry about whether she was friend or foe later. For now, he had to save her. He began to conjure a spell. As he took aim, however, he hesitated. The girl was so close to the beast that his poison magic sphere would likely splash onto her after impact. He was too far to use a direct contact spell. It was a gamble, but his only option was to launch a poison ball from a distance and hope for the best. A memory of his own weakness suddenly surfaced. During a training session with the knight Amanda, a wolf-like beast had knocked him to the ground. Powerless, he had cried out for Anastasia, Marie Summa, as she watched from the sidelines. The memory sharpened to a moment when Anastasia had looked at him with complete trust, asking him to handle things from then on. He had agreed without hesitation. That trust fueled his resolve. He was no longer that helpless boy. He unleashed his power. Poison magic ball, mortar, virulent poison. The orb of toxic energy slammed into the armored bear's chest. The effect was immediate. The hulking Euroagama, or armored bear, collapsed, its life extinguished. As a notification confirmed the kill, Anastasia rushed to his side, her voice filled with relief. "The monster is defeated," she exclaimed, turning her attention to the girl. "Are you all right?" The elf girl looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief and dawning hope. "Really?" she whispered. Rondo and Anastasia regarded her with shared concern. Overwhelmed, the girl remained seated on the forest floor. She began, her voice barely audible. "Thank you." The young elf girl, her form modestly veiled by her own long, light hair, offers her gratitude for being saved from danger. She introduces herself with a long, formal name, Kutelagasizelfingeziria. Standing with Anastasia, Rondo processes the lengthy name, repeating the first part, Kut. He then asks if she is perhaps Kut. The elf girl agrees, suggesting he simply call her Kut since her full name is so long. As she confirms her name, Rondo's attention is drawn to her most prominent feature. He asks about her long, pointed ears, questioning if she is an elf. She calmly affirms that she is. He introduces himself in turn, stating his name is Rondo. Internally, he decides it would be wise to conceal Marie's true identity, as they know nothing about this new acquaintance, Kut. Putting his plan into action, he begins to explain their circumstances to the elf. He refers to Anastasia simply as Marie, causing her to jump in surprise. He tells Kut that he and Marie were acting like adventurers when they fell into a trap and were suddenly transported to the forest. He notices Anastasia's flustered reaction and her reddened face, immediately asking what's wrong. The elf girl observes that Marie's face has suddenly turned red, prompting Rondo to worry if she has a fever. Anastasia quickly insists that she is fine. Despite her words, her mind races. She is completely taken aback by Rondo, suddenly dropping all formalities and calling her by her first name. The casual intimacy, so different from his usual respectful tone, feels as close as if they were lovers. Shaking off her momentary shock, she turns to their new companion with a smile. "Thank you, Kut," she says, formally acknowledging the elf. Her composure returns, and she giggles softly, remarking with amusement on how truly long an elf's ears are. Kut, looking puzzled by the comment, asks if she has done something to warrant the attention. As the two girls interact, Rondo observes them from a short distance, lost in thought. He muses that while he was vaguely aware of the existence of elves, he had never heard of anyone actually seeing one. He recalls that even the highest echelons of the kingdom are unable to track the location of the elven people. He listened as the elf girl, Kut, began to explain her circumstances, stating that elves typically do not venture out from their own lands. He immediately questioned her, asking why. In that case, she had been attacked by a monster. Kut stammered, searching for an answer, as Anastasia watched with a curious expression. After a moment, she agreed to tell them her story. She explained that her people, the elves, conduct their hunts in the village of the World Tree, a colossal, ancient tree that dominates the landscape. The young elf elaborated, explaining that they are only considered adults once they can hunt by themselves. Anastasia nodded in understanding, remarking that she had heard elves called hunters of the World Tree. Her face fell with sadness as she confessed that she had not yet managed to successfully hunt a creature by herself, even while elves younger than her were already being acknowledged as official hunters of the World Tree. Because of this failure, she recalled being mocked by the younger elves and looked upon with cold, disappointed eyes by the elders of her village. Hearing this, Rondo crossed his arms and told Kut he understood her feelings perfectly, revealing that he had also been the outcast in his family. Anastasia, surprised by his candor, quietly spoke his name. The elf girl replied that it was fine, as she was also an outcast, but she was still determined to become a hunter of the world tree as soon as possible. Her expression filled with determination. She clenched her fist and declared that she had resolved not to return to her village until she could successfully complete a hunt by herself. Anastasia immediately tried to comfort her, insisting that she wasn't an outcast, but Quirce's shoulders slumped. She explained that in her desperation, she had ventured outside the village's magical warding barrier, where she was promptly attacked by a monster. This, she concluded, is why she is, in fact, an outcast. Moved by the elf girl's story, Anastasia looks at her with a gentle smile, expressing her admiration for Quirce's courage. In response, Quirce addresses Anastasia directly, thanking her and offering to do anything she can to repay them for their help. Anastasia takes the opportunity to ask if Quirce, being an elf, is a master of the forest. Rondo confirms that she is. Seizing on this, she immediately asks Quirce to teach them the way out of the strange, oversized forest. Quirce beams, replying that if it's something as simple as that, she will gladly guide them. Rondo and Anastasia are visibly relieved and delighted. Rondo exclaims that having an elf guide them through the forest is the best possible outcome. As he speaks, Quirce leaps into the air, beginning to lead the way. He calls out his thanks, telling Quirce he is indebted to her. She smiles back, encouraging him to ask anything he wants to know about the forest. As they proceed, Rondo points towards a path, mentioning he had considered going that way. Quirce quickly warns him against it, explaining that path leads deeper into the woods and is dangerous. The elf then turns and cheerfully calls for Rondo and Anastasia to follow her, pointing them in the correct direction. She demonstrates her mastery of the terrain, leaping effortlessly from a large mushroom cap and bounding through the dense woods with light, swift movements. She moves with effortless grace, leaping far ahead. Rondo calls out for her to slow down, explaining that Anastasia is getting tired. Anastasia, breathing heavily, insists that she is fine and can keep up. Heeding his call, Quirce stops and suggests they make camp for the day. Rondo catches his breath as Anastasia gratefully sits down on a large mushroom. As they rest, Rondo asks Anastasia how much longer she thinks it will take to leave the forest. Still panting, she remarks on the natural agility of elves, comparing them to fish in water. Quirce provides an answer, estimating that at their current pace, it will take 2 more days to get through the woods. A relieved Rondo expresses his gratitude. The elf's estimate gives him pause. Rondo looks back into the dense woods, realizing with a touch of apprehension just how deeply they had ventured into the forest. He reflects on how dire their situation would be without Quirce's help. Turning his attention back to the present, he offers some water to Anastasia, who accepts it with thanks. Noticing her fatigue, Quirce asks Anastasia if she is tired. Anastasia smiles, reassuring her that she'll be fine with just a little rest. Rondo explains to their guide that humans are not accustomed to walking through the forest like elves are. Understanding, Quirce agrees they should rest slowly. As they settle, Quirce extends her open palm and makes a quiet plea, addressing the spirits of the forest. In response to her call, a small, crystalline object, sparkling with an inner light, materializes in her hand. The elf girl casually tosses the small, sparkling object she created onto the grass. Anastasia watches the gesture, her expression puzzled as she wonders if it is some kind of seed. She then turns to a tiny, winged creature floating beside her, Ragtitan, a spirit of the earth. With a bright smile, Quirce asks the spirit to lend her a little more of its power. In response, a brilliant light envelopes Quirce. She raises her arm, calling out to the earth itself as the ground begins to tremble and shift, much to the astonishment of Rondo and Anastasia. From that single spot, a massive, gnarled tree erupts from the ground, its branches twisting to form an elaborate resting place, complete with a hammock woven from its very substance. The two humans can only stare in awe. Rondo's face lights up with wonder. He declares it to be pure fantasy, a feat worthy of an elf, and questions if this incredible display is a form of magic. While admiring the new structure, he remarks that he cannot see the spirit at all. Anastasia, equally impressed, suggests that perhaps only elves are capable of perceiving them. Anastasia clasps her hands, realizing with excitement that what they just witnessed was spirit magic, something she has never seen before. Rondo then asks Quirce if other elves can perform such feats, but she humbly replies that she only asked the spirit for a favor. She continues, explaining with a gentle smile that all the other elves are actually much more skilled at it than she is. Rondo's expression grows thoughtful as he processes this revelation. His mind turns to combat, and he asks if she wants to use this power to fight and defeat the monsters of the forest. A brief memory surfaces of his brother, Felix, remarking on Rondo's own exceptional aptitude for magic. Quirce's demeanor shifts from gentle to fiercely determined. She exclaims that of course she does. She wants to defeat the formidable armored bear that even her fellow villagers struggle with, so she can bring back its head and proudly show off her victory. Her declaration to become stronger is met with a thoughtful response from Rondo. He remarks that her words are quite dangerous, but acknowledges that he understands her intense desire. Quirce eagerly confirms her resolve. Taking on the role of her teacher, he decides on a new course of action. Starting the next day, they will no longer avoid monsters. They will actively hunt them. Cute enthusiastically accepts his guidance. He then shifts the topic to her abilities, asking what kind of magic she can use. Cute seems uncertain, questioning if she even has any usable magic. Rondo reassures her, explaining that she appears to lack confidence, but the most important aspect of magic is how it's used. Anastasia agrees, suggesting that if they can confirm what she's capable of, they might come up with a good plan. With a gentle smile, she encourages Cute to start with a simple demonstration of what she can do. In response, the ground in the clearing before them suddenly sinks, creating a wide, shallow depression that startles both Rondo and Anastasia. Cute's eyes blink open, her expression unreadable as she focuses her power. Rondo watches, realizing she can manipulate the ground to some degree. As if to confirm his thought, a solid pillar of earth suddenly erupts from the ground with a heavy thud. She continues her demonstration, explaining that this is her idea of an attack, as a sharp spike of rock shoots from the earth, followed by a much larger one that slices through the air. Rondo correctly identifies her specialty as earth magic. Anastasia, however, offers a critique, noting that while the earth spear is interesting, its emergence is too slow and would be easily dodged. Unfazed, Cute simply states that she can also do this. She then unleashes a rapid-fire volley of earthen projectiles, demonstrating a much faster and more aggressive application of her power. She sadly confirmed Anastasia's assessment. While her projectile magic was fast and powerful due to the mixed-in stones, Anastasia noted that the time required to concentrate and cast it was longer than using a spear, a significant drawback. Rondo listened intently to their exchange. Her expression shifted to surprise as Rondo, a thoughtful look on his face, dismissed the concern. He concluded that, despite the casting time, Cute was actually quite strong. Emboldened, she turned to face the hulking armored bear. With newfound confidence, she challenged the beast, announcing her full, formal name, Kitavizilfingiziria. The bear responded with a furious roar. The beast paid her no mind, immediately charging forward. Cute yelled in frustration, demanding that it wait and listen to her entire name. It thundered across the clearing, kicking up dirt and debris as it relentlessly pursued the fleeing elf girl. She suddenly stopped, turned, and tossed a small, glowing spirit toward the charging monster, pleading for its assistance. With the spirit now near the beast, Cute raised her hands and invoked her magic, commanding the very earth to stretch and grow. Instantly, thick, thorny vines erupted from the ground, wrapping around the armored bear's limbs and torso. The creature roared as its charge was brought to an abrupt halt, and Cute recognized her opportunity. Continuing her incantation, she forced the vines to surge upwards, lifting the massive bear completely off the ground and suspending it helplessly in the air. With her target immobilized, Cute watched with intense focus as a cloud of dust and debris erupted in the distance, signaling a powerful follow-up attack hurtling toward the captured beast. Her spell is a resounding success. The armored bear lies defeated, impaled through its thick hide by enormous, thorny vines that have burst from the forest floor. Cute lands, cheering triumphantly that she has defeated it. Anastasia, watching from a distance with Rondo and the Earth Spirit, marvels at Cute's power. Rondo agrees, calling it a perfect victory. He reassures the ecstatic elf girl, promising that they will guarantee her claim. She single-handedly defeated the ferocious armored bear. His words wash over her, and a profound realization dawns. With this victory, she understands she can finally become a hunter of the world tree. The thought brings a radiant smile to her face, her eyes crinkling with pure happiness. With a small, joyful laugh, she offers her heartfelt thanks. Led by the elf girl Cute, Rondo and Anastasia race through a forest of giant, glowing mushrooms. He stops suddenly, a bead of sweat on his brow, as he takes in their strange surroundings and asks aloud, "The Forest of Lost Souls?" Cute confirms that this is what the elves call this forest, prompting Anastasia to remark that she has never heard of it. Her expression turns serious as she warns that if this is the Ganal Forest, they cannot afford to make a mistake choosing their path out. She explains that taking the wrong route will lead them directly into the territory of Margrave Edward. The revelation shocks both Anastasia and Rondo, who repeats the name of his family's domain in disbelief. Cute questions if the elves in her village would know more about human settlements than Rondo. She admits she only knows one path that leads to human lands, but assures them that there are more knowledgeable elves in her village. Rondo considers this, realizing that the path Cute knows might not be safe. He thinks that it would be best to get more detailed information from the elf village, despite the potential risks. Anastasia voices a grave concern, stating that she has heard the elven race is extremely hostile to humans, unlike Cute. She worries they might be attacked if they approach the village. Cute looks down, conceding that it is a possibility. She then offers a sliver of hope, suggesting that perhaps Rondo alone might be safe among the elves. He watches Cute, a flicker of worry crossing his face as he wonders if Marie will be all right on her own. He considers that Cute's earth magic is more suited for defense and support than offense, but he still thinks it might not be enough against a large number of monsters. As if to reassure him, Cute points towards a structure ahead, explaining that the earthen fortress she asked the spirits to help create is exceptionally sturdy. She leads him forward, cheerfully announcing that they can see the village from here. She adds that she learned how to use her skills and became stronger, hoping this will finally earn her the recognition of her people. Her expression then freezes, contorting into one of pure, uncomprehending shock. The source of her horror is revealed. Below them, the Elven village of Nal is a scene of widespread destruction, with thick black smoke rising from shattered homes. Seeing her stunned face, Rondo calls out her name. Galvanized into action, Quirce cries out that they must hurry to the village, and he quickly affirms. They rush down into the smoldering ruins, where treetop dwellings and mushroom-shaped huts lie broken and burning. Standing amidst the wreckage, Rondo can only stare at the terrible sight, wondering if monsters attacked. Quirce laments how beautiful her village once was. He asks what happened, and Quirce, sweating with anxiety, replies that it is likely the work of a yogama, a monstrous bear that recently appeared in this forest. As a massive, armored bear roars in the distance, an older elf confronts them, shouting Quirce's name. He angrily explains that because of that monstrous bear, the other bear-type monsters in the forest have become violent, and even elves are struggling to deal with them. The elf continues his tirade, berating Quirce for leaving the village only to return with a human during such a terrible crisis. He and other elves glare at the pair, their faces filled with accusation and anger. He was met with immediate hostility. Two young elves stood defensively, arms outstretched, ordering the human to leave and not to set foot in their domain. In response, Quirce thrust forward the severed head of a beast, shouting for them to wait. She declared that Rondo was her savior, and that she had hunted this creature herself, but only with his guidance. The commotion drew the attention of a towering, muscular elf who radiated authority. He bellowed with fury, questioning what Quirce, the village chief's daughter, was thinking by bringing a human to their home, declaring that he would not be deceived. His anger faltered as his eyes fixed on the trophy. He recognized it as the head of an armored bear. The revelation struck Rondo as well, who finally understood that Quirce was the daughter of the village chief. The chief confirmed it, turning to face the other elves and declaring proudly that Quirce was his beloved daughter. He now stood protectively before Rondo, a giant figure amidst the ruins of his village. He then turned his intense gaze down upon Rondo, who swallowed nervously. The elf's voice was low and threatening as he asked if Rondo had dared to lay a hand on his daughter, promising to kill him if he had. His intimidating demeanor suddenly shifted. The chief grunted thoughtfully, then stated that he could tell Rondo already had someone he loved, and that this knowledge put him at ease. With that, he completely dismissed Rondo and swept Quirce into a crushing, joyful hug. He exclaimed how much he had missed her and apologized for having run off without her. He held her at arm's length, fussing over her well-being, asking if she was hurt or hungry. Quirce tried to redirect his attention, assuring him she was fine, but expressing her concern for the state of the village. Rondo could only watch the reunion in silence. The chief's attention snapped back to Rondo, repeating his earlier observation. He asked again if Rondo had a loved one, stating his relief. The sudden question left Rondo flustered and stammering. He stood silently as the imposing elf chief introduced himself. The chief's name, in the human tongue, was Owl, and he insisted Rondo use it. With a warm smile that didn't reach his eyes, he added a chilling warning: call him father-in-law, and he would surely kill him. As Rondo surveyed the devastation from the monster attack, Owl's voice explained the tense situation. He pointed out that with the villagers already on edge, the sudden appearance of a human would only provoke their hostility. To avoid this, Owl suggested they move their discussion to a secluded location on the village outskirts. He gestured towards a massive, gnarled tree in the distance, adding that Rondo should also bring his other companion, Quirce, to join them. Their destination was a large, sturdy house built into the trunk of a great tree, nestled away from the main part of the Elven settlement. Inside the treehouse, Owl sat with his arms crossed, his expression thoughtful. He looked at Rondo and Quirce and stated plainly that he knew many things, including, simply put, where they should go and, more importantly, where they should not. He elaborated, explaining that the human kingdom was not a unified entity. As he spoke, images of the opposing factions, Margrave Edwards and Duke Anastasia's, appeared. Owl warned that if they traveled to a place they weren't meant to be, they would undoubtedly face more trouble before they could ever hope to return. With the context established, Owl made his proposal. He would teach them a safe route out of the forest. In return, he wanted their help in subjugating the Yogama, the armored bear. He explained the gravity of the threat. It is said that when a bear-type monster goes berserk, a far more vicious creature, the Yogama, lies beyond it. As a guardian of the forest, this was a situation he could not ignore. Rondo listened, his expression growing serious. Owl's gaze fixed on Rondo. He pointed directly at him, identifying his power with certainty. That ability of yours, he stated, it's system-out magic, isn't it? He then clarified his request, noting that he wouldn't ask this of an ordinary human. The fact that an elf was asking a human for help was, as Quirce's surprised expression confirmed, an extraordinary event. Rondo was left speechless, a bead of sweat tracing its way down his temple as he absorbed the weight of the proposition. He stood in silence, the chief's proposal echoing in his mind. Elsewhere in the Elven village, two young elves discussed his arrival. One wondered aloud how they could be so sure Rondo wasn't a threat, to which his companion explained that if he were a normal human, the spirits would have swarmed him the instant Quirce brought him into their territory. The reason for this tolerance became clear as a small, winged spirit, the Rag Titan, settled peacefully atop Rondo's head. A voice observed that he was blessed by the spirits. The voice belonged to the chief, Owl, who elaborated with a knowing grin. He explained that historically, those who wield system-out magic have always been beloved by spirits, marking them as special beings in the eyes of the elves. The revelation caught Rondo off guard, who could only stammer, "Spirits," he continued, explaining that the spirits surrounding Rondo had vouched for him, assuring the villagers that he was not a bad person. Owl then turned to his daughter, asking if she had seen him as well. From her position nearby, Quirce enthusiastically confirmed she had. Hearing this, Anastasia put the pieces together, realizing that Rondo's unique connection was the reason the elves believed he could succeed. She turned to Quirce and apologized for leaving the young elf to care for her alone, but Quirce simply smiled reassuringly. Rondo watched them, the implications of the discussion slowly dawning on him. He then addressed Anastasia directly, acknowledging her unspoken conclusion but voicing his own concerns. He insisted that the mission was too dangerous for her, and that he would face it by himself. Anastasia immediately refused. She reminded him of his struggle against the soldier bees, pointing out that he couldn't handle them all by himself. With a determined pout, she declared that she hated the idea of waiting alone and would be accompanying him. Her resolve left Rondo speechless, wondering what kind of monster they might face. She smiled, her confidence unwavering. She pointed out that the primary weakness of his poison magic was dealing with multiple enemies at once, and reasoned that her own wind magic would be a valuable asset in such a situation. With the matter of his companion settled, Rondo turned his attention back to the Elven chief. He formally accepted Owl's offer to cooperate in the monster subjugation and then asked for the details of the plan. A bead of sweat ran down his temple, betraying his anxiety. The chief laid out the strategy. In preparation for a possible assault on the village, they had already organized their forces into teams of 3 to 4 people, splitting them between a subjugation squad and a defense squad. He then declared that Rondo and his party would be assigned to the subjugation squad. He proposes that since direct coordination with the elves would be difficult, Rondo and Anastasia should act as a freelance skirmisher unit. He instructs them to accompany Jill's group to gather information on the monsters. After a moment of silence, Rondo agrees. The elf chief adds that it is just about time for Jill's team, the rear guard, to depart. As they prepare, one of the young elves informs them that Jill's team is setting out. Rondo, sweating slightly, nervously accepts the arrangement. Out in the forest, they meet the subjugation squad's captain, Jill Migro Tajamaru. Flanked by 2 other elves, Jill clicks his tongue, annoyed at having to work with humans. The combined group ventures forth. One of the elves warns that they need to be careful, as there are reports of a bear-type monster with abnormally high combat power. Hearing this, Rondo approaches Jill, asking if they can travel in the same direction to observe how the elves fight and use it as a reference. Jill retorts, asking what Rondo's group plans to do while his own team heads toward their objective. Without waiting for a reply, Jill turns and walks away with his squad, dismissively telling Rondo to do as he pleases. As the Elven squad departs, the tall, long-haired elf remarks on how Jill is not cute at all. Anastasia observes that, despite the cold shoulder, they at least learned the bare minimum from them. Rondo then recalls the rest of his conversation with Owl. He had expressed surprise that Owl would send his daughter, Quirce, on the mission. Owl sternly ordered Quirce to join Rondo's team and provide support. Quirce explained that as village chief, her father cannot show favoritism to his own family. Despite her calm explanation, Quirce admits she thinks her father is probably incredibly worried. At that very moment, Owl paces frantically, chewing his fingers and muttering his daughter's name in distress as the small spirit Rag Titan looks on. As Rondo's group ventures into the forest, a monstrous roar echoes from ahead. Quirce immediately recognizes the sound, explaining that Jill's squad has already encountered monster. With a confident smile, she urges her companions forward. They soon arrive at a clearing to see the source of the commotion. 3 massive armored bears, their formidable presence dominating the area as the Elven squad stands ready. Rondo observes the 3 large beasts and asks Quirce if they should join the fight. She calmly reassures him, stating that such opponents are no trouble for her kin. To prove her point, she extends a hand, her small spirit companion floating at her side. With a single word, wind, she summons a powerful gust. The blast of wind slams into one of the armored bears with incredible force. Watching from the side, Anastasia gasps, realizing the spell's power is many times greater than her own wind blast. Meanwhile, the other elves display their own prowess. The dark-haired female elf calls forth water as one bear already lies defeated nearby. Her spell manifests as a sphere of water that envelopes the head of a second bear. She clenches her fist, activating its suffocating effect. The beast thrashes helplessly, its roars silenced as it struggles for air within the watery prison, its life quickly fading. With 2 of its brethren neutralized, the final armored bear lets out a furious roar, its eyes glowing with rage. The female elf confidently declares that she will handle it. Jill turns to Rondo with a condescending smirk, telling him to watch. This is Elven combat, he boasts, before incinerating one of the down bears with a blast of fire, an act of needless cruelty. His combined elemental assault culminates in a devastating vortex. The armored bears are torn asunder, their massive bodies thrown about amidst the swirling torrent of wind, water, and fire as the three elves look on. The magical storm subsides, leaving one of the colossal beasts lying motionless on the scorched earth, smoke gently rising from its broken form. From a distance, Rondo watches the aftermath. In a clearing, the elven trio stands over the smoldering carcasses, their victory absolute and effortless. A smug, self-satisfied smirk spreads across Jill's face, revealing his contemptuous pride in the display. His power leaves Rondo's companion stunned. Anastasia marvels at the incredible magic, but Cute corrects her, explaining that it is the spirit arts of the elven race, and that Jill is a genius among them. Jill then turns to the group, waving a dismissive hand as he tells the humans to get out of the forest now that they understand. Rondo, however, is lost in a cold sweat, realizing the destructive force of elven spirit arts is on a completely different level. He wonders what kind of monster could possibly defeat these elves. In a dense forest filled with giant, spotted mushrooms, the air is still and quiet, setting the stage for the day's hunt. The quiet is broken as a massive, armored bear is sent tumbling backward into a deep pit, its limbs flailing as it falls into the trap. Observing the successful maneuver, Rondo remarks to his companions that their teamwork is coming along nicely. He notes that while Cute's initial earth magic timing is crucial, it's no longer an issue. A dark-haired elf from the skirmishing unit adds that it has been 3 days since they joined the subjugation effort, and they have grown accustomed to the rhythm of the hunt. He reflects internally on their progress. While the number of bears they can hunt has increased, the specific creature they seek, the Yogama, has yet to appear. He concludes that they might need to expand their subjugation range deeper into the forest. His thoughts are interrupted as he notices Anastasia staring intently into the woods, a look of subtle unease on her face. She turns to him, her brow furrowed. When Rondo asks what's wrong, she dismisses it at first, before admitting she feels a sense of unease or strangeness. He presses her for more information about this feeling. Anastasia explains that it concerns the bears they have been hunting for the past 3 days. Before she can elaborate, a blood-curdling scream echoes from the distance. Rondo instantly tenses, questioning the sound. The dark-haired elf beside him identifies its origin, stating it came from the area assigned to Jill's group. Realizing something must be wrong, Rondo declares they must go investigate, and the elf agrees. Without another moment's hesitation, Rondo, Anastasia, and the elf break into a sprint, dashing through the dense undergrowth toward the source of the cry. He arrives at the edge of a clearing, his eyes widening in disbelief at the scene before him. He sees the other elves locked in a desperate battle and realizes that whatever they are fighting possesses overwhelming power. It couldn't be just any ordinary monster to push the formidable elves this hard. He stares, wide-eyed, at the scene unfolding in the clearing. The sounds of battle had led them here, but the reality is more intense than he could have imagined. He asks if the elves are all right, his mind racing to comprehend the chaos and the nature of the beasts they fight, the Yogama. Before them, a group of elven warriors engages a pack of armored bears. The elves move with a fluid grace, their small figures a stark contrast to the hulking beasts. The battle is a whirlwind of motion. Despite their size, the armored bears are tossed through the air, sent flying by the elves' seemingly effortless strength. From a higher vantage point, the scale of the elves' power becomes clear. They are not merely surviving. They are dominating the battlefield, systematically dispatching the monstrous bears. Amidst the fray, the long-haired elf shouts a warning to Jill as a bear closes in. Annoyed by the sheer number of foes, Jill scoffs that this is becoming a nuisance. He summons a creature of his own, a roaring fire bear, to join the fight. His brief moment of summoning leaves him vulnerable. Several armored bears seize the opportunity, charging at the distracted elf from all sides. Seeing his comrades surrounded, the long-haired elf yells for Jill to get back, but it's too late. Jill is trapped in the center of the beast's coordinated assault. Suddenly, a new power intervenes. Kit, with her small spirit companion floating beside her, calls out to the earth. The ground itself obeys, splitting open into a massive chasm that swallows the charging bears whole. Jill, saved from certain doom, turns to see Kit, a look of utter shock on his face. As the earth settles, the fire bear summoned by Jill continues its rampage, a vortex of flame and fury unleashed upon the remaining foes. One of the armored bears lets out a final, defiant roar. Jill can only stare, dumbfounded, finally understanding the source of Cute's power. The young elf herself turns to her spirit companion, pleading with it. While the elves were still processing Cute's power, Rondo took the initiative against the remaining fire bears. He cast Poison Ball, weakening poison, launching a dark sphere of magic toward one of the growling beasts. The sphere detonated upon a group of the creatures, splashing them with a debilitating magical toxin. They staggered under the poison's effect, their health visibly draining. though they remained standing. He noted that the poison would take time to fully work and turned to Anastasia, entrusting the next move to her. She acknowledged his request, ready to act. In response, she unleashed a wind blast, a furious torrent of razor-sharp air that tore into the weakened monsters. The gale expanded into a massive vortex, buffeting everyone in the vicinity. Anastasia announced her preparations were complete, just as Jill shouted to Cute that he would buy her time to prepare for the next assault. She confidently told him to leave it to her, raising her hands and calling upon the earth. At her command, an armored bear charged forward, a sight that brought a knowing smile to Rondo's face. From a distance, the two disparate groups stood in the now-quiet clearing, a temporary and powerful alliance forged in the heat of battle. The once feral horned wolf and the formidable armored bear now stood side by side, their aggression quelled, transformed into disciplined allies. His companions watched as Jill stared, dumbfounded. He muttered in disbelief that they had dispatched 6 of the powerful beasts in a single, coordinated assault. Despite the swift defeat of their comrades, the remaining monsters were undeterred. One of the armored bears noted that over 10 of them still stood, roaring that they too would join the fight. In response to their advance, the prideful elf, Jill, surged forward, his fists clenched. He bellowed that he would not be outdone by either the bears or the humans. But his charge was rendered moot. Before he could even reach the enemy line, Rondo and Anastasia unleashed their magic once more, felling the last of the monstrous bears in a storm of poison and wind. As the last bear fell, a sudden, sharp sensation shot through Rondo. His back began to ache as his body recoiled, sensing a presence entirely different from the bears they had just fought. He perceived it was heading directly for them, his eyes widening in alarm as he pinpointed the approaching entity some 50 meters away and shouted a warning that it was coming. Across the wide, grassy clearing, a lone, small figure appeared on the horizon. The sight left both him and Anastasia bewildered, with Anastasia letting out a small sound of confusion. It was Cute who broke their confusion with a frantic cry, warning both Rondo and Marie to be careful. She pointed towards the distant hill where the small, white creature stood, identifying it with urgency as the Yogama, the demon bear. Anastasia stared, her expression one of pure disbelief. She questioned how it could be so small, explaining that since it was said to be controlling other monsters with ease, she had imagined a far more terrifying beast. Cute immediately cautioned her, insisting that Lady Marie must not be deceived by its appearance. As the small creature stood in the distance, a tremor of unease ran through Rondo. He trembles, sweat beading on his face as he stares at the small creature, muttering in disbelief. That bear. As he stares, Cute's voice warns that this new foe is more terrifying than any they have faced before. A strange analysis appears, identifying the creature as a Greg bear in perfect health, with its HP at 3,034 out of 3,034. The small bear itself lets out a high-pitched, almost cute cry. Its face sparkles with a disarming, almost cartoonish innocence. The sudden appearance of this powerful entity does not go unnoticed. In the distance, the massive, armored Yoroiguma flinches. Before anyone can fully process the situation, the tiny bear dashes forward with impossible speed. Rondo can only watch, stunned, as it closes the distance to the much larger beast. In a flash of white, the small creature slams into the Yoroigama, its paw tearing through thick hide and armor to deliver a devastating, bloody blow. He can only stare, utterly failing to comprehend the violent spectacle that just unfolded. With a final thud, the colossal Yoroigama collapses to the ground, lifeless. The small white bear stands calmly over its fallen foe. Its paw, now stained dark, holds the massive, still beating heart it ripped from the giant's chest. The creature casually pops the organ into its mouth. Nearby, the long-haired elf watches in horror, crying out that it just ate the bear's heart. The small creature, Yogama, finishes consuming the heart of the massive armored bear it just felled. Rondo stares, his mind reeling in disbelief at the scene before him. He realizes with dawning horror that by consuming the bear's heart, the creature's maximum health has increased by nearly 50 points. He wonders just how many bears it has devoured to attain its current power. His analysis confirms the creature, a Greg bear, is in excellent condition with its health nearly full. The sight sends an uncontrollable tremor through Rondo's body. He knows he should pull back and regroup, but his body is frozen, refusing to obey. As he struggles to control his trembling, Cute approaches him from behind. She states that she finally understands the source of the unease she's felt since the mission began. Still shaken, Rondo turns and asks what she means. She gestures towards the fallen beasts, explaining that everyone in her group had assumed the Yogama was controlling the other bear monsters. However, she now realizes that was a complete misunderstanding. She posits that the other bears, including the massive Yoroiguma and the ferocious fire bear, weren't being controlled at all. They were simply fleeing in terror from the Yogama. Her explanation paints a new picture of the recent events. The bear monsters, which normally inhabit the deep forest, were driven from their homes by the arrival of the Yogama. Having lost their territory and desperate for food, They had no choice but to attack the Elven village. The revelation does nothing to quell the rage of one of the elves. He clenches his fist, declaring that the reason doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact that their homes were destroyed and their families lost. With a roar, he unleashes a torrent of wind magic. The powerful gust of wind surges directly toward the unsuspecting Yogama. Seeing the rash attack, Rondo cries out in alarm, shouting for the elf to stop and not to act so recklessly. But his warning comes too late. In a blur of motion that defies perception, the Yogama vanishes from its spot and reappears behind the attacking elf. With a single brutal swipe of its claws, it tears through the elf's chest and neck. The elf stares down in disbelief as blood erupts from his fatal wounds, his attack utterly forgotten. The small, white Yogama lets out a guttural roar, its mouth stretching impossibly wide to reveal rows of sharp teeth as it consumes the heart of the fallen armored bear. Rondo watches, his eyes wide with shock, as the creature swallows its grotesque meal with a single gulp. The creature suddenly grows, its form solidifying into that of a larger, more defined teddy bear. A status display materializes, identifying it as a Greg bear, its health now excellent, and its maximum HP increased by 150. Rondo, sweating, realizes its heart is now 3 times stronger. He asks Cute if any elf has ever survived having their heart eaten by a Yogama, and she confirms that she believes none have. Having finished its transformation, the newly empowered Yogama turns its back on the defeated armored bear. It wags its tail playfully as it faces the group of hostile elves, Jill and his 2 companions, who stand ready for confrontation. From a distance, the aftermath is clear. The massive armored bear lies motionless on the ground. Jill and the dark-haired female elf watch as the small Yogama is suddenly launched through the air, a white projectile aimed directly at them. Rondo, seeing the creature's new trajectory, shouts a warning. He realizes with dread that the Yogama is learning and will now specifically target the elves. The creature hurtles towards its new prey. As the Yogama charges, Jill reacts, shouting for fire to incinerate the beast he calls Iris. A torrent of dark, thorny vines erupts from the ground, but the creature barrels through them undeterred as Cute screams. Jill stares in disbelief. "What?" he exclaims, realizing with a cold sweat that his powerful attack has had no effect whatsoever. The Yogama continues its charge, but the spirit of the earth, Rag Titan, suddenly appears and calls forth a torrent of water. The magical flames are instantly extinguished with a hiss. The dark-haired female elf watches, wondering aloud if the threat has vanished. Her question is answered in the worst possible way. The Yogama appears directly behind her, its paw raised to strike. Her eyes widen in sheer terror at the sudden, silent threat. Her fate seemed sealed. As the Yogama lunged, its jaws closing in, the dark-haired elf named Ranya could only watch in terror. Beside her, Jill screamed her name, urging her to run, but it was too late as the beast's maw snapped shut right before her face. Suddenly, a massive wall of earth erupted from the ground with a tremendous crash, blocking the Yogama's attack and sending the creature tumbling backward. The magic came from Cute, who stood with the spirit Rag Titan. She reassured the spirit, telling it that the sturdy fortress they created wouldn't be broken so easily. She then apologized to Rag Titan for the cramped conditions inside the earthen pillbox, asking it to endure while noting that its smaller form allowed for greater strength. From her vantage point, she watched the Yogama clawing at the structure. Watching this unfold, Jill sweated with relief and astonishment. He couldn't help but think that Cute, the one who was called a failure back in their village, had now saved him twice. From his own hiding spot, Rondo analyzed the battle. He noted that the Yogama had taken Jill's fire magic without any damage, leading him to suspect it had magic resistance. He decided to test this theory, preparing a poison magic sphere, paralysis poison spell. He launched the twin spheres, realizing that if the poison magic itself was ineffective, it would be difficult to wear the beast down with only the physical component of the spell. The Yogama, however, proved incredibly agile, dodging both projectiles with ease. Rondo marveled at its nimbleness, but his observation was cut short by a chilling realization. The Yogama's attention had now turned completely towards him. Without hesitation, the creature pivoted and launched itself forward, charging at an incredible speed directly toward Rondo's position. Alarmed, Rondo shouted that the Yogama was indeed targeting the elves and urged Cute to create another fortress to protect herself. Cute refused, stating she couldn't support him if she was enclosed. Instead, she cried earth once more, and the ground beneath the charging beast crumbled away, sending it plummeting off a newly formed cliff. From an unseen location, a young noblewoman, Marie von Anastasia, unleashes a powerful blast of wind magic. The spell, a wind shot, strikes the small, white bear-like creature and sends it hurtling through the air away from the elves. The attack, however, proves ineffective. The creature, identified as a Greg bear, lands on its feet completely unharmed, its vitality barely diminished. Rondo watches in shock, realizing that even Marie's powerful magic had no effect. The beast must possess a high degree of magic resistance. Nearby, Kit looks on with alarm. As the Greg bear lunges forward, Rondo leaps in front of Kit to protect her. He summons his own power, shouting the name of his technique. Poison magic, shield. A thick, dark, disc-shaped barrier materializes just in time to meet the creature's charge. He grits his teeth, pouring immense magical energy into the small, dense shield. He has chosen to use dragon poison, concentrating it in the hopes that this will be enough to stop the beast's relentless advance. The creature's claws slam into the poison shield with tremendous force. The shield shatters under the impact, sending droplets of black poison flying. The Greg bear lets out a pained cry as the corrosive substance makes contact with its paw. The force of the blow sends Rondo skidding backward across the rocky clearing, but he manages to stay on his feet. He immediately turns his attention to the elf girl behind him, asking if she is all right. Kit, startled but safe, confirms that she is and thanks him for his protection. Rondo looks back toward the creature, assessing the situation. He realizes that even with double the magic he'd normally use, his poison wall was still pierced. However, he notes with satisfaction that he succeeded in delaying the creature's attack, buying them a crucial moment. The Greg bear stands its ground, but the effect of the poison is now clear. Its paw, which struck the shield, is visibly dissolving. Its status now shows it is afflicted by poison, its health noticeably diminished as it lets out another pained cry. The small creature stumbles, clearly affected. Rondo watches intently, a bead of sweat on his brow, realizing with relief that his magic was effective. More importantly, the poison is now coursing through the beast's system. He reasons that while the creature seemed to have a high resistance to conventional magic, his own attribute-less spells were apparently exempt. With this knowledge, he concludes that he can gradually wear down its health using his poison magic spheres as the small bear whimpers, looking weakened. Putting his new plan into motion, he turns to Kit, telling her he has a request. Before he can continue, the weakened Yogama retaliates, hurling a chunk of rock directly at him with a sharp cry. Dodging the projectile, Rondo clarifies his plan. To counter the creature's impressive speed, he needs her to level the bumpy, rock-strewn terrain. Understanding his intent, Kit raises her hand to the sky, the small earth spirit hovering near her. She calls out to the land, and the ground begins to rumble and shift violently as the Yogama watches bewildered. In an instant, the entire clearing is transformed. The uneven, rocky ground becomes a perfectly flat, circular expanse. At its center, the Greg bear lies motionless, seemingly defeated, while Rondo and Kit observe from the perimeter. With the battlefield prepared, Rondo thanks Kit for her help. He then instructs both her and Marie to retreat behind the fortress he is about to conjure, a confident look on his face. His instruction is met with immediate hostility. Jill grabs him, demanding to know what he's thinking. The elf argues furiously that leveling the terrain will only make it easier for the demon bear to move, but Rondo calmly replies that this is exactly what he wants. Before the argument can continue, Jill shouts a warning. It's coming. The small white bear pushes itself back onto its feet, preparing to charge across the newly flattened ground. As the creature begins its advance, Rondo unleashes his magic. A colossal, viscous barrier of liquid poison erupts from the earth, forming a massive, poison wall that engulfs the arena and traps the charging bear within. The small bear-like creature struggles within the pool of poison. Watching from the side, Kit expresses her shock, realizing the poison wall has been laid out horizontally across the ground. It groans, its small body mired in the toxic liquid. Despite the poison, the creature pushes forward, attempting to run through the viscous trap. As it struggles to move, Rondo observes that its movements have slowed, just as he planned. With his target's mobility impaired, he determines that now is the time to strike, conjuring a new sphere of magic. He unleashes the spell, a poison ball, paralysis bind, sending the orb of paralytic poison hurtling towards the creature. The sphere finds its mark, splashing across the small bear. Rondo confirms the hit, realizing the paralysis poison has taken effect. With the creature now completely immobilized, he prepares to press his advantage, commanding it to be consumed. He gathers a massive amount of magical energy, unleashing his next attack, Poison Magic Dragon, Shiryu. A colossal dragon formed of pure, dark poison manifests above him. The immense poison construct dives from the sky, a torrent of liquid toxin aimed directly at the helpless creature below. It slams into the ground with devastating force, engulfing the small bear in a violent explosion of poison. From a distance, Kit congratulates Rondo on his apparent victory. Jill, however, stares in disbelief, stammering as he tries to comprehend the power he just witnessed. Below them, the hardened surface of the poison wall begins to crack. The cracks spread rapidly until the entire poison structure shatters. Rondo looks on in shock as, from the wreckage, the true form of the Greg bear emerges, far larger and more menacing than before. A status indicator reveals it is poisoned, but still has over half its health remaining. Rondo stares in disbelief, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. The horrifying realization sinks in. Even after taking a direct hit from his ultimate spell, the poison dragon Shiryu, the beast's power hadn't even been cut in half. Rondo's poison magic strikes the small, white bear-like creature, Yogama, which recoils from the impact. A status update materializes, showing its health at 1910 out of 3,235 and confirming it is now afflicted with poison. Rondo observes, realizing his dragon poison has successfully taken hold. He quickly assesses the situation. His poison dragon spell had depleted about 1,000 of the creature's health points. To defeat it, he would need to land 2 more such attacks. However, he realizes with grim certainty that he only has enough magical energy for 1 more strike. He is at his limit. Based on this calculation, he shifts his strategy. He notes that the dragon poison is now draining 5 HP from Yogama every second. With a new plan in mind, he places his hand over a glowing magic circle on the ground, preparing a different kind of spell. He unleashes the spell, shouting, "Poison Wall!" A massive, shimmering barrier of toxic energy erupts from the earth, creating a wide trench between him and his opponents. His goal is to stall for time until the creature's health drops to 1,000. Watching the creature's health tick down to 1,900, he continues his mental arithmetic. If the poison drains 5 HP per second, he needs to shave off another 900 HP. This will require 180 seconds. He just has to hold out for 3 minutes. With his strategy solidified, Rondo stands firm before the toxic barrier. He declares to himself that if he can just endure for 3 minutes, he can cast another poison dragon and claim victory. He then shouts a challenge across the divide, warning that the gap is too wide to be jumped. He dares the creature to try and cross, promising to strike it down with another powerful spell if it enters his range. In response, the small bear, Yogama, whimpers as it slowly approaches the edge of the poison wall. It then stops abruptly, standing perfectly still as Rondo watches with focused intensity. Suddenly, the creature's simple, dot-like eyes begin to glow, crackling with an immense and unexpected surge of raw power. Rondo's confidence shatters, his face contorting in alarm. Reacting instantly to the unforeseen transformation, he thrusts his hand forward to cast another spell, screaming at his companions. "Everyone, get down." His hastily erected poison wall stood firm, a shimmering, crackling barrier of toxic energy separating them from the transformed creature. Behind its protection, he, Kit, and Jill watched the small bear-like monster. The wall stretched across the clearing, a testament to his newfound power, holding the line against the unknown threat. For a moment, the toxic barricade held strong, a jagged, shimmering curtain against the forest backdrop. But then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the entire structure vanished without a trace. He stared at the empty ground, bewildered. The vast expanse of poison he had summoned was simply gone. His confusion was cut short when Kit cried out a warning, "Rondo, behind you." He turned, wondering if the creature could also use magic. Reacting instantly, he realized the poison wall he'd spread across the ground had disappeared. As the small white creature lunged, he thrust his hands forward, grunting as he summoned a new defense. Poison magic shield. The solid shield of poison materialized just in time, but it was no match for the creature. With an unnerving snarl, Yogama shattered the defense with contemptuous ease, sending fragments flying. Rondo could only watch, his face a mask of disbelief. The force of the impact sent him tumbling backward across the grass, his desperate defense utterly overwhelmed. He pushed himself up, staring in astonishment. The creature, Yogama, was casually juggling the solidified, disc-like fragments of his shattered shield. He could only mutter in disbelief, "What is this thing? It broke my poison shield so easily." He watched in alarm as Yogama's paw began to crackle with electricity. He recognized the lightning-clad claw, but realized with a jolt of fear that its power felt dozens of times greater than before. The creature's face twisted into a furious snarl, its entire body now wreathed in violent arcs of lightning, filling Rondo with a profound sense of dread. It lunged forward with astonishing speed. Rondo knew instantly that his simple poison shield would be utterly useless against such a ferocious, empowered assault. In a desperate gambit, he shouted to the very earth, slamming his hands on the ground. A massive pillar of rock erupted, forming a crude but immense wall between him and the charging beast. As the dust began to settle, Kit appeared behind him, calling his name and asking if he was all right. He turned, startled by her sudden arrival. He began to thank her, but his words caught in his throat. Yogama had bypassed the wall and was now hovering in the air, crackling with power. A chilling realization dawned on him. He was never the target. His eyes followed the creature's path, confirming his fear. Its true target had always been Kit. He knew that neither wind nor earth magic would be effective against an airborne foe. From a distance, Jill watched, noting that the objective was, as expected, the elf's heart. Refusing to let it succeed, Rondo lunged forward to intercept the beast. He roared out the name of his spell, Draco's Toxin, and slammed his hand directly onto Yogama, unleashing a potent poison into its body. He shouted for Kit to get away, confident that the direct hit had dealt massive damage. With no magic left for another attack, his plan was to simply hold on for the minute and a half needed for the poison to work. But as a surge of electricity coursed through him from the creature, he let out a scream of pure agony. The shock left him paralyzed. He cried out that he couldn't move, urging Kit to escape. She, however, stood her ground, preparing a wind magic bullet spell, though she knew the creature was too fast to hit. Suddenly, a vortex of wind enveloped Yogama, and both Rondo and Quirce could only watch in horror. The swirling vortex of wind that had enveloped the battlefield was the work of a powerful new arrival. The elf chief, Owl, plants himself firmly between the combatants, his muscular frame a bulwark protecting his daughter, Quirce. The small spirit, Rag Titan, hovers near his shoulder as he declares with absolute authority that he will not allow anyone to lay a hand on her. From his paralyzed position on the ground, Rondo recognizes the newcomer. Quirce, her face awash with relief, cries out, "Papa!" Owl turns to her, his expression softening as he praises her for holding on so well. He remarks that she seems like a different person compared to before. Glancing back toward the battlefield, he notes that thanks to Rondo's efforts, the magic should be breaking soon, and asks his daughter if she is ready for what comes next. Within a swirling vortex of wind, the elf chief Owl stands before his daughter. He addresses her with a new title, Warrior Quirce. She looks up at him, her eyes wide with a mix of surprise and resolve, and gives a firm, affirmative reply. Her mind flashes back to the hulking armored bear that nearly killed her. With tears welling in her eyes, she thinks of Rondo and Marie, realizing that if she hadn't met them, she would have died back then. She whispers her thanks to them. She recalls how Rondo helped draw out her abilities and how Marie encouraged her, giving her courage. Overcome with emotion, Quirce feels that meeting the two of them has fundamentally changed her. With a newfound fire in her eyes, her expression hardens with determination. She declares aloud, to herself, that she has finally become a warrior. Turning to her father, she volunteers to buy them time. Al agrees, stating that for once, time is on their side, and he will join her in the effort. In the distance, Rondo continues his own fight. The small, white Yogama creature is suddenly racked with electricity, screeching in agony as Rondo and Owl observe the attack's effect. Seizing the opportunity, Owl and Quirce begin a joint incantation. They call upon the wind and the earth, and the very ground around them erupts with swirling magical energy. The Yogama is launched helplessly into the air by the gale. From his vantage point, Rondo watches in awe, realizing that Owl's magic is so powerful it can inflict certain damage even on an opponent with resistance to wind magic. Caught in the violent vortex, the creature is battered relentlessly, its shrieks echoing as the combined spell takes its full effect. With Marie looking on in surprise, Quirce announces that her ultimate magic is prepared. A swirling vortex of dark energy gathers in her hands as she takes a firm step forward, ready for battle. She calls out to her father, Owl, asking him to join her. He readily agrees, telling her to lend him her power. He proclaims that this is his greatest wind magic and calls upon the wind spirits to grant wings to the princess's spell. From his vantage point, Rondo watches in dismay as the small, teddy bear-like form of the Greg bear begins to sparkle, regenerating its health. He realizes the creature has a healing ability, and worse, that the rate of recovery is greater than the damage from his poison. He grits his teeth in frustration. After getting it this far, the creature will simply heal itself completely. He clenches his fist, lamenting his lack of magic. If only he could cast his poison dragon spell just one more time. As despair consumes him, a voice echoes from the darkness of his thoughts, posing a question. Will you make a contract with me? The mysterious voice continues its offer, promising to defeat the bear if he agrees to the contract. Rondo looks around, startled, questioning whether he should accept this strange proposal. Who's there? He shouts into the empty air. His eyes dart to the bear's status, seeing its health regeneration accelerating. Panic setting in, he cries out that he understands and will agree to anything, even a contract. The moment he agrees, the contract is formed. A small, dark, striped creature materializes before him. It notes how little magic he has left, but declares it will take all of it anyway. A tendril touches Rondo's chest, and his remaining power is siphoned away. In a flash of energy, a new being stands in its place. A tall, draconic humanoid clad in dark, segmented armor, with powerful wings and menacing horns. Rondo collapses to his knees, utterly drained. The imposing draconic figure looms over him, declaring that, as per their contract, it will now eliminate the bear. In the rocky clearing, a towering, draconic humanoid materializes before Rondo, its armored form radiating power. Rondo stares up in stunned silence. From a nearby ridge, Anastasia and the elf chief, Owl, watch the scene unfold. Anastasia, bewildered, asks what is happening, while Owl observes with keen interest. The draconic being towers over him, its voice echoing as it speaks. It informs Rondo that because his magical power is so pathetic, his face has reverted to its original form instead of maintaining the transformation. It continues its critique, tilting its head as it calls him a magic-less bastard. The creature warns him to increase his magic reserves to prevent such a failure from happening again. Rondo remains speechless, trembling slightly. Rondo finally finds his voice, jumping to his feet and pointing an accusatory finger. He shouts, demanding to know why the creature appeared so suddenly. The being calmly retorts that it wasn't sudden at all, It only appeared because Rondo was the one who initiated a contract. He vehemently denies this, yelling that the being was the one who suddenly pressed for a contract and that he has no idea what it's even about. The draconic entity seems unimpressed, muttering about his audacity. The being dismisses his outburst, noting that a poison magic user has appeared for the first time in 1,000 years, yet he's struggling against such a small fry opponent. As it speaks, a small, sparkling, white bear-like creature materializes in the clearing. Rondo glances over, his expression one of pure confusion. He questions the creature's assessment, wondering aloud how that bear could possibly be considered small fry. His confusion turns to dread as a status window appears over the bear, identifying it as a Greg bear, with its health already recovered to 2,190 out of 3,225. Rondo realizes with dawning horror that not only has it healed nearly 70% of its health, but the effects of his dragon poison have completely worn off. As he stares, paralyzed by the revelation, Anastasia's voice calls down from the ridge. She asks who he's talking to, remarking that he had done so well to reduce the creature's health, but now he's just standing there. Before Anastasia can get an answer, the elf chief, Owl, provides one of his own. He observes with a knowing smile that it seems Rondo has gained the ability to see spirits. Anastasia looks at him, utterly confused, and asks what a spirit is. As the standoff continued, the small, white bear's eyes suddenly flared with brilliant light. The creature threw its arms wide, gathering immense energy. Rondo watched in horror, realizing the danger. He cried out that this was bad, exclaiming that it was the same lightning as before and that Quirce and Marie were in its path. Before the lightning could be unleashed, the draconic spirit moved. A shimmering, box-like cage of energy materialized in the air, containing the volatile power with a sharp crackle. He stared in disbelief. The spirit had trapped the lightning. He wondered how it had managed such a feat, and when it had even created the prison in that specific location. Despite its failed attack, the small bear stood its ground, letting out a defiant grunt as it faced the towering draconic entity. In a flash, the spirit's clawed hand descended, striking the bear's head with brutal force. The creature's form was pierced, and it collapsed to the ground as Rondo watched in shock. He could only watch, momentarily stunned into silence by the swift and violent conclusion. The small bear lay motionless, its life force extinguished. A system-like notification confirmed its demise. Greg Bear, deceased, with 0 health remaining. Rondo finally processed the sight, thinking to himself that it was truly dead. Just as the reality of the victory set in, a wave of agony shot through Rondo's body, causing him to cry out and stumble forward. He clutched himself, his face contorted in pain. He understood immediately. The pain, like shattering bones throughout his entire body, was a symptom of complete magical energy depletion. He collapsed face first onto the dusty ground, the last vestiges of his strength gone. As his consciousness faded, he could hear Quirce and the small spirit calling his name as they rushed toward him. His final thought was one of disbelief. All the effort he'd put into chipping away the monster's health had been rendered meaningless, erased in a single moment. Through his closing eyes, his last sight was of the towering draconic spirit standing over the vanquished Greg Bear, before it began to dissolve into shimmering particles of light. His world faded to complete blackness. Then, slowly, vision returned, focusing on the wooden beams of an unfamiliar ceiling. He sat up abruptly, his mind hazy. Where am I? He wondered, the memory of succumbing to complete magic depletion still fresh. As he took in the simple wooden room, the elf chief, Owl, appeared in the doorway. Oh, you're awake already? The large elf asked, a hint of surprise in his voice. Rondo, recognizing him, addressed him by name. Owl explained that they had brought him to the village chief's lodge, a large structure built into a tree, only 2 hours prior. He remarked that it was unusual, as someone suffering from complete magic depletion would normally be unconscious for an entire day. Rondo asked how long he had been asleep, and Owl credited his swift recovery to the blessing of the spirit. At that moment, Rondo noticed the small, bee-like creature hovering quietly over the bed covers next to him. His expression soured. He jabbed a finger toward the creature, reminding it that he had fulfilled his promise to defeat the bear and that it should be grateful. Turning back to the elf chief, he demanded, Owl, what is this thing? Owl replied calmly, what do you mean? That's the poison spirit that has blessed you. The poison spirit, floating in the air, scowls with fury. It internally fumes, questioning who would ever consider its presence a blessing. After 1,000 years of confinement, it laments being stuck with such a pathetic poison magic user, cursing its terrible luck. Its angry thoughts seem to reach Rondo, who flinches in surprise. The spirit menacingly asks if he'd like to suffer from magic depletion again, causing the young man to recoil. It then aggressively demands to know if he has any complaints. Before he can respond, the door to the room slides open, revealing Quirce and another young woman. Rondo looks up, addressing them as Quirce and Marie. Marie, with a grateful smile, thanks him for defeating the Yogama. Quirce then steps forward, asking if he's all right now that he has woken up. As Rondo sits in bed, the poison spirit interjects, telling them they're thanking the wrong person, as it was the one who actually defeated the beast. Quirce immediately counters, arguing that the spirit itself was only freed because of Rondo's presence. The spirit clarifies the situation, explaining that a poison spirit can only be granted its freedom by a poison magic user. This is the nature of its existence, a being known as Gift, the poison spirit. Rondo glares at the creature, muttering about being stuck with a pathetic poison magic user. The spirit, now named Gift, bristles at the insult, retorting that it has a proper name and isn't some poison dumpling. Their bickering leaves Marie looking puzzled. Rondo shouts at Gift to be quiet and stop making up strange insults. But Marie seems to find the term amusing, repeating poison dumpling with a thoughtful expression. The argument is cut short by the arrival of the village chief, Owl. He addresses Rondo, stating that since the Yogama has been defeated, it is now his turn to fulfill their promise. He declares he will show them a safe path out of the forest. He notes that the sun is already setting and suggests they depart tomorrow, implying they will stay for the night. Rondo expresses his surprise and gratitude for the offer. Owl then extends an invitation for them to join the festival commemorating the Yogama's defeat. Rondo and Marie gaze out at a vibrant celebration unfolding in the village square, filled with glowing lanterns and bustling stalls. Rondo marvels aloud, taking in the sight of a true Elven festival. He is taken aback when Quirce bows deeply, thanking him profusely and declaring him the hero of Nal village. Flustered by the sudden praise, Rondo tries to downplay his role. Despite his initial surprise, he reflects that he is happy to be accepted, a stark contrast to the rejection he once faced. His thoughts are interrupted by Jill, the hostile elf from before, who approaches stating he has come to repay Rondo for avenging their people. He clarifies that it wasn't just for his personal loss of someone named Iris. Rondo's actions brought vengeance for everyone in the village whose family had been taken by the Yogama. With a look of sincere, if grudging, respect, the elf offers a simple, heartfelt thank you. Having expressed his gratitude, his demeanor shifts. He asks Rondo to show him around, admitting it's his first time at an Elven festival, and suggests they start by getting some drinks. Moments later, 3 wooden cups of a dark, traditional Elven beverage are poured, ready for the celebration. Rondo brings the tray of drinks to a table where Marie and Quirce are waiting. As Marie thanks him, Quirce looks around and asks why Jill isn't with him. He explains that the village chief, Owl, had summoned Jill for something, and that he would join them when he was finished. Taking a seat, he picks up a cup, prompting Marie to comment that it's unusual to see him with alcohol. Quirce elaborates, telling Marie that Rondo never touches alcohol, though he likes sweets. The conversation sends Rondo into a dark memory, the poisoned wine at his own coming-of-age ceremony. He grimly recalls the assassination attempt, but then realizes that it was that very event that led to him acquiring his poison magic. He pushes the memory aside and tells Marie that even he feels like drinking on occasion. Hearing this, Marie smiles warmly, covering a small laugh with her hand as she remarks that Rondo has finally become an adult. In response to Quirce's continued apologies, Marie reassures her not to worry. Rondo, seated between them, then raises his cup and calls for a toast. With a hearty cheers, their wooden mugs clatter together. She takes a sip, her eyes widening in pleasant surprise. She remarks on the wonderful aroma, noting that it's her first time trying Elven wine and that it is absolutely delicious. As the festival buzzes around them, Marie laughingly confesses that the wine is so good, she might drink too much and get drunk. Quirce, smiling, expresses her happiness that Rondo is also enjoying it. His smile fades as a somber thought surfaces. He realizes that tomorrow is the day of his departure, and the time he has left to spend with Marie like this is now vanishingly small. Marie seems to share the sentiment, her own smile turning wistful. She thinks to herself that once she returns to the duchy, it will be much more difficult to arrange time to meet. Perhaps spurred on by this unspoken melancholy, Rondo grabs a large gourd of alcohol and begins to chug it down with abandon, thinking that this is precisely what spirits are for. The effect is immediate. Rondo slumps forward, face planting onto the table with a quiet hiccup, completely intoxicated. Marie gazes at his sleeping form with a gentle, understanding expression. She reflects on his recent battle with the Yogama and the exhaustion that must have accumulated from his unfamiliar life in the forest. She then remembers that even while she herself was sleeping, he had tirelessly stood guard, watching over her through the night. As he rests, Quirce looks on with admiration, remarking that Rondo really did his best. Jill, however, scoffs from beside her, callously noting that on top of having weak magic, Rondo is also weak to alcohol. As the elf festival continued around the unconscious Rondo, Quirce turned to Marie with a proposition. She asked if Marie would like to see Rondo's contract spirit. Marie's eyes widened with excitement, and she clasped her hands, eagerly declaring that she would love to. In response, Quirce presented her with a gift, a beautiful, faceted crystal pendant that shimmered brightly. Marie gasped in admiration, exclaiming how beautiful it was. Quirce then explained the pendant's nature. It was crafted from an elven stone, and by carving a spirit's name onto it, the wearer would gain the ability to see that specific spirit. She admitted she thought Marie might feel lonely being unable to see the companion Rondo always had with him. Nearby, Rondo's small, bee-like spirit floated, still invisible to Marie. With a playful wink, Cute revealed that she had already taken the liberty of carving the name of Rondo's spirit onto the stone. Overjoyed by the thoughtful gesture, Marie expressed her heartfelt thanks. Feeling she must reciprocate, Marie insisted on giving Cute a gift in return and asked her to turn around. A slightly confused Cute complied, turning her back as glowing lanterns drifted through the night sky above them. A moment later, Marie smiled brightly, now wearing the Elven stone pendant around her neck. She admired her new accessory, declaring it to be wonderful. Cute, now wearing a new necklace of her own, thanked Marie and told her it suited her well. As Marie returned the thanks, Cute pointed towards the sleeping Rondo, announcing that his spirit was now perched right on top of his head. Her eyes now able to perceive it, Marie stared at the creature. The small, striped spirit with its simple, angry-looking eyes stared back. Marie's first impression was one of shock, her thought trailing off as she wondered what this ugly little thing was. However, her initial shock quickly melted away. Both Marie and Cute leaned in close to the still slumbering Rondo, their faces alight with affection as they cooed in unison about how cute the spirit was. In the background, the elf Jill watched the scene unfold, his expression one of pure disdain. In the early morning light of the elf village, the chief, Owl, observes Rondo and Anastasia preparing to depart. He notes that after the previous night's festivities, everyone is still in a deep sleep, so there is no one to see them off. He asks if they're truly leaving already. Rondo, standing beside Anastasia, replies that he prefers it this way, as a grand farewell doesn't suit him. With a polite smile, he announces that they are leaving now. In response, Owl decides to assign Cute as their guide, assuring them that he has already told her the safe route. He estimates that, even on foot, they should be able to exit the forest within 4 to 5 days. Rondo sincerely thanks the elf chief for everything he has done. Owl turns his head, stating that it is they, the elves, who should be thanking him. As they venture into the woods, a voice from the village calls out, wishing for the spirit's blessings to be upon their journey. Walking through the dense foliage, Rondo reflects internally, surprised to learn that this bewildering maze of trees was the Ganal forest all along. He glances at a map held by Anastasia. She explains that, just as Lady Marie predicted, the Ganal forest borders both the Edward and Anastasia territories. She expresses her relief that they were given a safe route, noting that one wrong step could have led them into Edward lands. As they walk, Rondo casually asks Cute which exit she had originally known about. The elf girl cheerfully replies that her father had told her it led to the Edward territory. The revelation makes Rondo shout in alarm, realizing the danger they narrowly avoided. His small contract spirit appears, calling him a coward and taunting him to just go home and get his revenge. At the same time, Cute calls out, reassuring her distant father that she has the route to the Anastasia territory memorized and will guide them properly. He bristles at the spirit's words, insisting he isn't thinking about revenge. The spirit scoffs, calling him spineless for not wanting to retaliate after everything that was done to him. He listens as his contract spirit cackles, taunting that his family is full of magical elites. The spirit claims that if he were to return with only a little poison magic, he would be killed instantly. Anastasia, overhearing this, looks on with concern. Visibly stressed, he interrupts the spirit, demanding to know how it is so familiar with his personal history. The creature casually explains that it has been observing him from the spirit world since the day he was born. The young man reels back in shock, unable to believe he's been watched for his entire life. The spirit confirms it, revealing that Rondo possessed the aptitude for poison magic from the very beginning. It continues, explaining that because it had set its sights on him, a rare poison magic user, it saw a chance to finally gain freedom after 1,000 years. Rondo, now thoroughly annoyed, demands to know what the spirit is talking about, as he's never heard of such a thing. Cute steps in to clarify, explaining that spirits can cross over from their world by forming a bond with a being of a matching magical attribute. She elaborates, however, that this bond is supposed to be exclusively between spirits and elves. She states that, fundamentally, spirits and elves are meant to be a set. The spirit interjects, revealing the loophole it exploited. A bond is also possible with a human, provided they are a user of non-systemic magic. This, it declares, is why it bonded with Rondo. It clarifies that the link with a human is forged when a magic crest is engraved on their body. The spirit then vents its frustration, revealing it had to wait 15 long years for Rondo to finally awaken his poison magic, calling him a good-for-nothing for the delay. Enraged by the spirit's selfish reasoning, he points a finger at it, shouting that he doesn't care about its circumstances. He declares that he never asked it to follow him and orders the nuisance to go away, but the spirit merely laughs. Its amusement fades as it floats directly in front of Rondo's face, its tone turning serious. A single drop of sweat rolls down the young man's cheek as the spirit reminds him of the inescapable truth. You did form a contract with me, didn't you? He breaks into a cold sweat, realizing that in the chaos of their first encounter, he was bound by a contract whose terms he never actually heard. While he frets, the spirit lets out a triumphant cry, zipping through the air and declaring its range of action is now unlimited. The spirit then lays out its demands. Rondo must provide it with magical energy 3 times a day, Participation in battles is optional. He must come immediately when called, and run errands whenever the spirit is thirsty. Rondo frantically objects, shouting that the spirit is adding far too many clauses. He asks what would happen if he were to break such a contract, but the spirit casually dismisses his concern. It reminds him that since they have a contract, he should just do his best. Rondo questions if such a one-sided agreement can even be called a contract. In response, the spirit delivers a chilling ultimatum. If he breaks the contract, he will never be able to use poison magic again. Rondo protests that this isn't a contract, but a one-sided deal that only benefits the spirit, arguing that in exchange for defeating the bear, he is now unfairly bound. He clenches his fists, accusing the spirit of being deceitful by forcing the contract on him during a life-or-death battle. The spirit, unfazed, asks if he calls it dirty, retorting that it was merely a clever negotiation tactic. Defeated, he can only mutter that the spirit's point is valid. Anastasia approaches, trying to console him by pointing out that he now has a powerful companion who defeated a formidable Yogama in an instant. Rondo can only manage a week, but, in reply, she smiles warmly at the spirit, welcoming it to their group and affectionately calling it Gift-chan. Her gentle welcome is cut short when Quirce loudly commands the spirit to stay away from her and only deal with Rondo. The spirit meekly agrees. A sly look crosses Rondo's face as he notices the poisoned spirit is blushing, wondering if such a creature can turn red. For days pass. The full moon hangs high in the night sky, illuminating the clouds from behind. In a clearing within the forest, a small, crudely constructed hut stands beneath the giant, glowing mushrooms. Beside it, Rondo sits on a log, tending to a small campfire. He pokes at the embers with a stick, the flames crackling softly in the quiet of the night. His expression is one of quiet relief. He reflects that they should be able to leave the forest tomorrow, glad that he could escort Marie safely this far. His moment of peace is shattered as the contract spirit suddenly appears beside him, startling him. The creature asks if he is truly happy that their journey is ending. He glares at the spirit, annoyed, wondering how it can read his mind. The spirit ignores his frustration, stating that it wishes this life could continue for a little longer. The spirit's voice carries a chilling promise across the clearing, declaring that it will make him understand its desire, one way or another. In response to the blatant threat, Rondo's face contorts with anger. He mutters in frustration about how troublesome humans, and by extension, their companions, can be. While he fumes outside, Anastasia lies awake inside the hut. She stares blankly, her eyes wide open, watching his silhouette by the fire through the open doorway. Beside her, Quirce turns her head. Noticing Anastasia's restlessness, she quietly asks if she is unable to sleep. Her question hung in the air as Anastasia lay awake, her eyes wide and unblinking in the dim light of their shelter. The young elf leaned closer, asking again what was wrong. Anastasia turned her head slightly, admitting that she had been troubled and wrestling with her thoughts. She confessed her specific worry. She didn't know what she was supposed to do with herself after seeing Rondo and the others off on their journey. Listening patiently, Quirce began to share her own story to comfort her. She recalled the morning she was set to depart from her village and the words her father had for her. In the memory, her father had told her that her future was her own to decide. She could return to their village or continue to travel with Rondo's group. He acknowledged her as a full-fledged warrior, declaring the choice was entirely hers. She admitted to Anastasia that, despite those words, she had never even considered leaving the village before. Her mind had been consumed with a single desire, to be acknowledged by her people. But that was the past. Standing with newfound resolve, Quirce announced her decision. Meeting Rondo and Anastasia had changed her. She would leave the village and see the world with her own eyes. Her declaration brought a small smile to Anastasia's face. She agreed, thinking that if Quirce met more people, she would learn so much more. A desire sparked within Anastasia as well, a desire to know more. She reassured the young elf, telling her she was certain she would be all right. That reassurance was met with an unexpected development. Quirce, having suddenly changed into a warrior's training garb, crouched before a bewildered Anastasia and declared that it was now her turn. Before the bewildered noblewoman could respond, Quirce sprang up and dashed out of the shelter, shouting that she was going to get Rondo and that Anastasia should wait right there. The sudden turn of events left Anastasia utterly flabbergasted. With a heavy thud, Quirce lands in a secluded, rocky basin. She has placed a large, glowing, spotted orb in the center of a small patch of grass, illuminating the cavernous space. Having retrieved Rondo, she holds him firmly by the collar before a blushing Anastasia. Rondo, equally flustered, demands to know what she thinks she's doing. She watches their awkwardness from a short distance, a small smile playing on her lips as she declares her plan a success. Leaving the pair alone, Quirce wanders into the strange, alien-like landscape under the full moon, remarking on the beauty of the starry sky. She muses that if things go well for the two of them, she should be happy, yet a note of internal conflict colors her words. Her thoughts are interrupted by the sudden appearance of the small, floating contract spirit. She wonders what it is, feeling a sense of unease despite her earlier sentiment. The spirit simply hovers, observing her. Gazing up at the stars, she lets out a sigh, muttering to herself that elves can be such a pain. Returning to the grotto, she stands at the entrance and asks for permission to enter. A voice from within, quiet and hesitant, tells her to come in. Inside, she finds Rondo and Anastasia sitting stiffly across from one another on simple bedrolls. They exchange quiet, formal greetings, the air thick with tension. A closer look reveals their shared state of extreme embarrassment. Both are blushing furiously, unable to make eye contact. He breaks the heavy silence, a bead of sweat on his brow, stating that he's glad they seem to have found a way to return to the territory. He expresses his belief that starting tomorrow, he can go back to the life he had before being exiled. She listens to his words, her expression unreadable, and offers a simple, quiet agreement. He then reveals his true intentions, declaring that after he escorts Lady Marie back to the Duke, he plans to leave Kleinort entirely. Anastasia is visibly taken aback by this sudden declaration. He looks down, unable to meet her gaze, and apologizes. He explains that he had made this decision after leaving the Elven village, but couldn't bring himself to say it until now. Anastasia remarks on how sudden this is, prompting another quiet apology from the flustered Rondo. The weight of his words finally hits her. Tears well up in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks as she whispers his name in a trembling voice. Her tears catch him completely by surprise, his eyes widening in shock. Before he can react, Anastasia closes the distance, throwing her arms around him in a desperate embrace. He utters her name in astonishment as she confesses her deep admiration for him. With tears streaming down her face, she looks at him and clarifies her feelings completely, confessing that she loves him. As she repeats her confession, Rondo's own emotions overwhelm him. He pulls her into a tight embrace, his voice thick with emotion as he admits that he feels the same. He holds her, his expression shifting from the tearful confession to one of newfound resolve as he whispers her name, Marie Sama. He then gently pushes her back by the shoulders, creating a small space between them. Anastasia looks up, surprised and slightly bewildered by his sudden action. He looks at her with a heavy heart, explaining that they should end their journey as they are now, as comrades who have overcome hardships together, with nothing more between them. His words strike her, and her expression crumbles. Why? She asks, her voice trembling, unable to finish her thought. Rondo admits that he has thought about a future with her many times. He looks away, unable to meet her gaze, his shoulders slumping. He calls himself a pathetic man, apologizing because in his current state, he believes he is incapable of making her happy. Hearing his self-deprecation, tears welling in her eyes, she can only whisper his name in a soft, pained voice, Rondo. Her quiet plea seems to strengthen his resolve. He looks directly at her, correcting himself. No, Marie. He begins, then clarifies. That's why Marie saw. He makes a bold request. He acknowledges that it is a selfish wish, but he asks her to wait for him. His voice gains power as he makes a solemn vow. He promises that no matter what, he will become a man strong enough to defy the world's injustices, strong enough to build a life with her. Until then, he declares. His passionate promise brings a tearful smile to her face. Wiping a tear away, she playfully asks if she'll be an old woman by the time he returns. With unwavering confidence, he assures her, I'll come for you long before that. Beneath the light of the full moon, their pact is sealed. One voice affirms, it's a promise. Another, softer voice replies, yes.